Wolfpack, what is going on? It's your boy, the Wolf of Roto Street. RotoStreetJournal.com, we breed and feed you fantasy wolves here with your 2025 Fantasy Rankings Mega Show. Everything you need to know at every position. We are going to go ranking by ranking, tier by tier at each one. I'm going top 24 quarterbacks, top 50 running backs, top 50 receivers, and then the top 24 tight ends as well as a kind of just a crash course. If you are just picking up your fantasy knowledge right now and getting ready for your draft, or whether you just want another ranking set to compare your own research to, I did come in sixth last year for 2024 accuracy. I was number 2 in multi-year accuracy at Fantasy Pros for the rankings out of hundreds of experts. Very proud of that, and I'm hoping to go for that top spot this year. So I'd love to share with you what my 2025 rankings are currently looking like. They were updated just this morning. It's August 18th, fresh off the preseason week 2. So you know you're getting the freshest, most up-to-date rankings here. Thank you so much for being here. Let's dive in to the quarterbacks to start, and of course, hit any questions in the comment section, and also after the video, happy to read those as well. Let's dive into the top 24 quarterbacks, rankings, and tiers for 2025 fantasy football. As you can see at the top, not really a little bit of a contention point between Lamar Jackson versus Josh Allen. Who should be the top dog? I know you can't go wrong with either, but you can be a little bit more right. I do lean Lamar Jackson coming off the most fantasy points of all time among fantasy quarterbacks. Just a crazy season. I know Josh Allen, he's got 3 top 10 all-time seasons across his last 3 seasons in a row. So you know between these two, you're getting those unicorns, the Konami points where you got incredible rushing ability, lots of rushing touchdowns, and then insane passing scores as well. Great arms for both these guys. You don't need me to spell that out for you, but which one should you go? I do lean Lamar Jackson. I understand that his passing touchdown could come down quite a bit. His red zone touchdown rate was right around 50% last year, when his historic average is around 22% red zone passing touchdowns. So maybe that does regress closer to his career average, to the average of regular quarterbacks as well. Or maybe that is just how good this Todd Monken offense is. There's so many outs too. What if this defense takes a step back? What if Derrick Henry gets hurt? To me, there's just so many scenarios where we see Lamar Jackson somehow even hit another form, whereas Josh Allen, we know what we're going to get. It's going to be amazing. I just slightly lean into Lamar Jackson. I think the ceiling is a little bit higher, but you know you can't go wrong with either of those guys. I did have Jaden Daniels up in that tier for a lot of this offseason, but between the Terry McLaurin drama, I just can't put him up there quite there. I think there's about a round or so value difference, whereas you're going Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen. You got to have to invest in the late second. I don't know if I love that opportunity cost, but ultimately you're looking in the second round for those two. Jaden Daniels is more of a third round target, and sometimes in best ball often falls into the fourth round as well. So I do think there's a little bit of a tier gap now, and I actually lump him more in with the Jalen Hurts, who also has that Konami upside. Could be any given year right there with Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. We know he's likely to lead quarterbacks in rushing touchdowns this year, an absolute beast. And then Joe Burrow, who I hear a lot of people say, oh, well, he doesn't have the leg points like these other, again, these unicorn quarterbacks between the top 4. They have the leg points. They have the passing as well. Burrow doesn't have those leg points, but what he does have is a horrendous defense, a cannon arm, and I think he has a real shot to approach that Peyton Manning kind of 5,000-yard, 40 to 50 touchdown, just insane season this year. Scott Barrett has a great stat about him in losses and how he averaged nearly 30 points per game, and I could see them chasing points quite often this year. The defense might only get worse if they do, in fact, trade Hendrickson over there. So I think he absolutely deserves a spot. A lot of people argue, oh, no, he should be going a round or 2 after these guys. I think Joe Burrow is right there, and I love his best ball price right now when he falls into the 60s. No brainer. So those at minimum, your top 5 quarterbacks. And if you've watched any other ranking show, you've seen any other ranking set, you've probably seen, and mine are aligned with this. You can see here, I've got a tier now where these are the 5 elite quarterback ones. You can't go wrong with it. Then I get into tier 3, and I've got 6 through 16 in the same tier here. And yes, of course, I have them ranked, so there are guys I prefer to others. But that is to say, this is a massive quarterback tier. In my overall strategy when I get here, who's going the latest? I'm kind of back to my roots of a wait on QB purist. I do still love, of course, the Konami edge and building around those guys. But ultimately, when you get from 6 to 16, I'd be okay with any of these guys as my number one quarterback. So let's talk about a few of the guys who I'm higher on, lower on, but we'll just read off the tier for the audio listeners as well. Number 6 is Baker Mayfield. Number 7, Bo Nix. Drake May comes in at number 8. Number 9, Jared Goff. Number 10, Dak Prescott. 11, Patrick Mahomes. You guys can see it's -5 ECR for me. He's the one that I am getting the least by far of this tier. Brock Purdy comes in at 12, Herbert at 13, 14, Jordan Love, 15, Kyler Murray, and 16, Justin Fields, who has fallen quite a bit since preseason week 2 began. So Baker Mayfield at the top, a crazy season. Liam Cohen does depart. That is a little concern for me. There is a bit of touchdown regression that could happen here, but I still love the guy. I mean, you look at this weapons cabinet. It is insane to have Mike Evans, Chris Godwin on the men, sure. Jalen McMillan really showed well the end of last year. And then you add Igbuka, who's looking like the next superstar at the position. I see no reason for a massive drop-off. I think Baker Mayfield deserves that 6th spot with Josh Gizzard coming over the passing game coordinator, now the OC. Hopefully there's not a ton of drop-off there. It sounds like they're taking even more deep shots now in this offense. Bo Nix, I really could see a Drew Brees-like season. He worked out with Drew Brees a lot throughout the offseason. And Brees, very complimentary of his cerebral nature, the way he picked his brain. Said his arm talent was great, loved working with him, but the way he wanted to approach the game and learn how did I mentally prepare for game days, for practices. Drew Brees couldn't have spent more glowingly about Bo Nix. So the Sean Payton offense, he's got his perfect quarterback. I could definitely see this team tearing it up this year. Drake May, as you can see, +8 ECR. So he is definitely the guy I'm highest on. If you've seen my guide, you know at this point, Drake May is that kind of Konami guy. It was Jaden Daniels for me. Last year, the must draft around 9-10 quarterback, that's going to be Drake May. And maybe it's the Patriots homerism in me, but I just think he is due for a massive season. When you see those leaps from like a low-end quarterback 1 to, oh my God, he's elite and going crazy, it is the combination of a cannon arm and the leg points. Drake May, his ceiling comp was often Josh Allen coming out of college. And so I've seen enough. I went to practice, and the way he was slinging it around looked amazing. I know there's been a few ups and downs in the preseason action so far, but I love Josh McDaniels coming back here. I love the line upgrades. Sure, they need some more beef. I get it. But weapons upgrades as well. Everything has gone up. And in his full games last year, he averaged over 18 fantasy points per game, would have been a top 12 quarterback in his points per game for his full starts, and everything around him has improved. So Drake May, of everybody in this tier, is the one I often am getting because he goes towards the bottom of it, and I have him ranked towards the top of this tier. So I love Drake May. Not much to say about Jared Goff other than he's the engineer of the league's most explosive passing attack. High floor, some weekly ceilings where they are in shootouts, and maybe this defense takes a step back. You've seen it. When they faced Buffalo last year, he went absolutely bananas. There are some home road splits that are a little concerning with Goff, though, too. So he can be a little bit more boom or bust. You know they love to run the ball 40 times if they get that big lead, too. So like Jared Goff, I might even like and put Dak Prescott above him. He's been rising up the rankings. I've seen this narrative about the defense, especially if Micah Parsons isn't there, taking a step back, and this maybe being the NFC Bengals, and Dak Prescott just chucking. I mean, 2 seasons ago, led the NFL in passing yards, passing touchdown. It's not – we've seen it. We've seen the guy be the quarterback 1 before, and so I have no problem with Dak Prescott in my top 10. In fact, I probably prefer him to Jared Goff and a little bit safer than Drake May. So I think he's just going to keep climbing up these rankings, a guy I'm trying to get more and more of in these last few best ball drafts of the season. But as you can see, Pat Mahomes down here at 11. I don't know the exact stats off the top of my head, but they're in the draft guide where I list him as a bust, a guy I am not targeting. It's one of those things where across the last 2 seasons, I do know this. He has fewer 20-plus point days across his 2 seasons combined than Bo Nix had as a rookie last year in 1 single season. Everybody thinks Pat Mahomes, those high-flying Chiefs. It just hasn't been the case the past 2 seasons. And the defense is still really strong. The weapons, especially if you lose Rashee Rice, you already got Hollywood Brown banged up again. I just think Pat Mahomes, nobody has more screen yards or check down yards across the last 2 seasons than Pat Mahomes. I believe he's better. Jared Goff is the next closest, and Mahomes has like well over 1,000 more than him. So he's kind of become this check down merchant. Maybe the Chiefs regain their mojo, and I look like a fool for this because we have seen it, of course. I mean, in 2018, when we first started this thing, Pat Mahomes was our poster boy. We said he's the sleeper quarterback of the year, and he made us look like geniuses. This is a different Chiefs team, different weapons, different style of offense. just is way more boring than I think people give him credit for when it comes to fantasy. Brock Purdy, though, 49ers, I just love Kyle Shanahan. It's always a sure bet to be one of the most efficient attacks. And whether it's Brandon Ayuk's out for 6 weeks, doesn't matter. Juwan Jennings steps in. Juwan Jennings hurt. Ricky Pearsall will be the engine. Really doesn't matter who the main guy is. It's always going to be a feast. And then you got Justin Herbert now talking about, I might want to get a little more Josh Allen to my game. He's got, if you look at all his measurables, more athletic ability in terms of just testing. Of course, on the field, how it plays out, Josh Allen's a monster. I'm not trying to discredit him. But Justin Herbert had a faster 40, better vertical, better agility testing. He just doesn't use those legs much. But this year, he says, I really want to. We know that's a staple of the Greg Roman offense. So maybe a little Konami Justin Herbert. Love him. Jordan Love, quarterback 5, just 2 seasons ago, has an injury last year. Weapons are all around him getting hurt. I could see a huge rebound from Jordan Love in this Packers passing game. So quarterback 14, yeah, what's funny about this tier is like I had Jordan Love maybe a month ago at quarterback 10, and I just kind of, it's back and forth, and how's camp progressing? How are things looking? It's whoever's the cheapest for me. Now, I am clearly lower on Kyler Murray. I just think the guy stinks. I know he's solid enough for fantasy because he gets those rushing points, but is so tentative to the rushing. And there's been quotes about how the team, he wouldn't run when he wanted. The team wanted him to. And he said himself, I'm going to plan to run more this year, use those legs to my advantage. I'll believe it when I see it. Still, though, you can't deny that he has a very high weekly fantasy season. I just think this run game is dominant in the passing coordinator. Drew Petzing, don't love this offense at all. Makes life tough for Marvin Harrison, makes life tough for Kyler Murray. Don't love it. And then you can see Justin Fields also a bit lower on ECR on him. 1 for 5 in the preseason, backing up all the reports we've seen about him going, 2 for 10 on the day, 1 for 6 in team drills. All the accuracy concerns are very real right now. And the way the ball was coming off his hand, I've always liked Justin Fields as a fantasy quarterback. I always knew the accuracy woes, but at least it looked like he could throw it when needed. The way he looked in the preseason, the ball was looping down. It looked hideous. And so I am worried. The one thing I liked about Fields landing with the Jets is how could they bench the guy? Who else do they have? I don't know. If he looks this bad for multiple games, I could see them turning to Tyrod Taylor. You're there for the leg points. He does have the single season or single game record for most rushing yards. He's got a 1,000-yard rushing season on his resume. So I get why there could be fantasy goodness, but I think there's going to be a ton of those days where he has 3 fantasy points, 2 interceptions, completes only 5 passes, and maybe he gets you 6 fantasy points on the ground, but it's just ultimately so hideous. And so I think he's going to be 2 boom or bust. I have him a lot lower now in my rankings. Now, somebody I actually did mean after watching last night, Caleb Williams is going to get a bump up these rankings. I have him at 17 minus 2 ECR here. He belongs in this tier, so let's call it a tier of 17 quarterbacks. I should have bumped this up before the show. I think he'll slide in just ahead of Fields for me, under Kyler Murray, maybe ahead of Kyler Murray, though. Ben Johnson's attack looked phenomenal. How many yards and points did they end up racking up last night? 600 yards, something crazy. And a lot of it was on the ground. I get it, but it just looked so efficient. The line was protecting him. He looked comfortable. Colson Loveland looks like a stud. Burden looks like a stud. In addition to, you have Odunze maybe taking the next step. DJ Moore, of course, is a beast. The weapons, the line upgrades, the play calling upgrades, all those things that I love for Drake May are even better for Caleb Williams. He just doesn't have quite the rushing upside. So Williams does belong in this tier. So that's a mistake on my rankings. I will be correcting. You can find them at rotostreetjournal.com or in the link of the description as well. But I want to go through the top 24. On the Sleeper Show, I talked about loving J.J. McCarthy, thinking he is an absolute slam dunk sleeper pick this year. Would love to have him as my quarterback, too, at any point heading in to the year. But my other quarterback sleeper I really like, it's on an article at rotostreetjournal.com, also, of course, in the guide, is Trevor Lawrence. Liam Cohen, who helped squeeze that top 4 season out of Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield had never been a top 15 quarterback across his career in fantasy. Then he's the quarterback 4. Yes, of course, I do think Baker's better. I like Baker as a player a lot more than Trevor Lawrence. But there are already quotes about wanting to use his legs more, just like Baker, who set career highs in rushing touchdowns, rushing yards last year with Liam Cohen. He said, we want to get Trevor Lawrence using those legs more, getting those layup first downs. You got Brian Thomas. You got Travis Hunter. I'm a very big fan of Trevor Lawrence. And Tua is a very intriguing one. He falls, nobody wants him in best ball right now. And just 2 seasons ago, he's the quarterback 7 in fantasy points per game. But last year was hideous. He got hurt, and then the whole offense crumbled. The line looks atrocious. So I understand what Dolphins team are we going to get? If it's even in the middle, Tua's going to be a steal at this price. If it is last year's hideous line, everything looks awful, then yeah, I get Tua probably won't pay off a top 20 quarterback price. Even then, though, I think we're all closing the door on Mike McDaniels. I think he's a nerd. I understand he's annoying with the shenanigans on the sideline. I think the guy can call a very good offense. It was just 2 years ago. They were in the top 3 in points and total yards. And maybe we get close to that level again, and Tua just ends up looking like one of the steals of the draft. If you wanted to go to a more exciting unknown in Michael Penix, I wouldn't blame you. He's got a cannon arm himself. But the weapons there, what is it? Drake London and then Kyle Pitts. Are we really going to do that again? Darnell Mooney looked good, but he's banged up. And then what he can do in terms of Penix. But got a top 10 line. I do like the McVay-inspired scheme. I think Penix could have himself a nice year. Rounding out the top 24 quarterbacks, you can see Stroud and then a teardrop. He looked very comfortable, though, in this new McVay-inspired scheme. 6 for 8 in the preseason, 44 and a touchdown. You got Nico Collins. You got Christian Kirk. You got 2 exciting rookies at Iowa State there in Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel. So I really think this offense could take another step forward. And Stroud looked comfortable there. Matter is that shoulder okay? That drop-off from the rookie season to this past year was pretty stark. And as you can see, I am a bit lower than ECR on him, so I don't really draft Stroud much. But could I see the end of the season and be like, oh, yeah, the Texans really rebounded and Stroud looked much closer to rookie year form? Yeah, absolutely. I just made the same argument for Tua, just the 2023 versus 2024 data. So I understand that. And then, so this is kind of, again, the drop-off of like 6 to 16 are all fine quarterback ones, in my opinion. Even Fields with those accuracy woes, as much as he worries me. And I'd add 17 Caleb Williams into there. This tier 4 was the 18 JJ McCarthy, 19 Trevor Lawrence, 21 Michael Penix, and 22 CJ Stroud. That is my quarterback 2 tier. And I bet you see a lot of these guys just not even get drafted in your redraft leagues. You know how it goes. That's why I also love drafting elite quarterbacks, because you don't have to have that roster spot burned on one of these. But I did say last year, even if you have a good quarterback, take James Daniels anyways. I think Drake May is kind of that guy for me this year as well. And then you get into these like more questionable quarterback 2s. But I do see upside to Bryce Young. Was the quarterback 6 from week 12 on last year. Really seemed to click. Now you add Ted McMillan to this mix and give him some real legitimate weapons. I like Dave Canales, the play caller. I can see a nice season from him. And Geno, always underrated. And now playing with Chip Kelly, a fast-paced offense, will be a ton of plays. Will be a high-volume run game, there's no doubt. But you got Genty looking like an absolute stud. Brock Bowers, the best tight end in the league. Jacoby's a solid weapon out there. And then Dante Thornton's looking really good. They add Jack Besh as well earlier in the draft. So a lot to like about him. So that wraps up the top 24. You can kind of see this tier here where Cam Ward is 25. Very intrigued by the rookie. I know he's been up or down, but he had a 30-yard drop by Van Jefferson. Trash. I really think Cam Ward has shown, like, I belong here. I am an NFL quarterback. And then it becomes, like, truly after him. I probably even should put Stafford and Darnold on a tier below, only because, Stafford, what's going on with his back? He's like going into the chamber, and I don't even want to know what's happening in there. Sam Darnold, Jalen Milroe looks really good, so he could be breathing down his neck all year. And then you got the Jackson Darts, the Richardsons, like when they start, the Daniel Jones even, they're going to be good in their games when they start, but it's just going to be up or down. Who is in this week? Who's out that week? So for best ball, especially, those guys worry me. I don't really see much reason to be drafting them in redraft anyways. That wraps up my top 24 quarterback rankings, folks. We got 360 of you here right now. Love to see it. If you enjoy what you're hearing, please consider that thumbs up button. It really helps us get out to more people and continue to grow the channel. It'd be so greatly appreciated. But thank you again for spending your Monday with me. Hopefully those drafts, let me know in the comments. We got a few people, a few legends in here. Coach Zeke, I love to see you. Bulldog, great to see you too. Keep those questions coming in. I'd be happy to answer them all at the end of the show. I cannot wait to help you guys out. And I know, Zeke, you've already bought the guide. I greatly appreciate that. Of course, I'll pull up a picture of the guide in a little bit. We'll go through the running backs first. But, of course, a free way to help your guy is that thumbs up, the likes, the shares, the retweets, all that stuff really does help. But let's dive in now. Top 24 running backs. No, we're going top 50 at this position here. Let's get really deep into the weeds here. So tier 1, we got Bijan, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Barkley. We did a whole first-round stream, me and the Truth, just last week. Highly recommend if you want to deep dive into that, each of these prospects, go check that one out. But as you can see, I do have Gibbs. I bumped him above Barkley. The more I talked about him, it's just the excitement I feel, the vibe you start to get. I really enjoy that. The comment comes in, Daniel Culk with the super chat, take the shirt off. I mean, I don't know if I can do a full stream shirt off, but I'll give you a quick flash there, Dan. Anything for the super chat's great to see you, Culk. Thanks for tuning in. Back to the top tier of running backs. The people like jumping into the clip video must be like, what the hell is going on with this guy? But Bijan, Gibbs, and Barkley, top three. Thanks again for the support, Culkeen. I think that is a very clear, though. Jamar Chase, those three, that's your top four, and then you kind of figure it out from there in fantasy. If you wanted to go Barkley because you feel a little bit safer about his workload, as you should. Jahmyr Gibbs is contending with David Montgomery. I understand a little bit safer there. But, man, like there's already reports that Gibbs is running ahead of David Montgomery, whereas last year in camp it was always Montgomery through first. And the first-team offense comes out. We saw it all season. The first drive was always David Montgomery. Until David Montgomery got hurt, and Jahmyr Gibbs through his career has averaged over 30 fantasy points per game without David Montgomery in. Even when Montgomery returned for the playoffs, we had a 35-point game against the Commanders. I just think it's one of those things. New coordinator comes in. He's been with the team, of course, John Morton, but he's talked about wanting this offense to take it to an even higher, more explosive level, prioritizing the big play. So JMO getting a little bit of a bump up through that. And then Gibbs. And I do buy that they're, how do you put this genie back in the bottle? And so to me, plus you got all those concerns with Barkley in terms of the curse of the 400 touches, the curse of the 2,000-yard rusher, all of that good stuff, rather negative stuff. You just don't have those red flags with Gibbs. So Barkley sure seems like the higher floor player, but you got an age 29 season with a huge workload, a little sketchy. And of course, Bijan at the top, I should just mention, I absolutely love Bijan Robinson. And from after the first 6 weeks, a little sketchy, the offense finding its groove. He had 20 or more points in 10 of the final 12 games of the season. Was the best running back through that span, averaging well over 20 fantasy points per game. He's just so rock solid. He's talked about adding more explosives. I could talk about Bijan all day. Just the safer, the bet on volume. There's no warts and only ceiling to potentially be added there. And so that's where I do differ a little bit from the ECR. You can see -2 ECR on Barkley. And then we get to a big tier 2, all guys that I consider running back ones, round one worthy potential. But of course, and I've said this in the draft guide, I think there's 17 potential round one guys. And even like you can add Bucky Irving to that mix, Josh Jacobs now with all his backups getting dinged up. I wouldn't bat an eye that these guys rank just as high there. And so I've got Derrick Henry at 4. I did have Devon Achane right there at 5 before, but he's fallen. We'll talk about him in a second. But I go Henry 4, Genty 5, Jonathan Taylor 6, Chase Brown 7, a little bit above the ECR there, +4 on him. Devon Achane at 8. And then you got Bucky Irving, Josh Jacobs, and as you can see, number 11, Christian McCaffrey, the Tin Man. We'll get to him when we get there, but as you can see, -7 ECR on him. Definitely lower on McCaffrey. Let's just get that out of the way, huh? The elephant in the room, because it's a bad coach-player fit with me and him. I've had him 2 years in fantasy. Last year, I went all in. My auction, spent every dollar to get him. My redraft leagues, I traded up to get to the first. The guy is an absolute cheat code when he's out there. He'll be the number one running back, the number one player in fantasy, should he stay healthy. But every single time I have owned this guy, last year and then 2 seasons ago, 3 seasons ago. 2 seasons ago was when he went nuts, not on my team, of course. Every time I've had him, he misses at least half the year. In fact, it's a good likelihood that he's going to. 3 out of the last 5 seasons, he's missed at least 10 games, which is just a huge astronomical risk. But the reward is the best player in fantasy. There's really no middle ground. It's either he loses your season, he wins you your season. He does have the every time he just loses me every season because either I have him and he stinks or I face him in the fantasy semis and he goes off for like 30 and just buries me. I can't get him right. He hates me, apparently. I'll just never have him on my team again. And do with that what you will. So that means he probably will have a 2,200-yard, 20-touchdown season because I'm not touching him. If you want to put him at running back 4, if you want to put him at running back 1, like I can't really argue with you in terms of what his upside is when he's out there. My only case is he doesn't play for me. Whenever I have him, he will not be out there. And so I have him at 11. He's not going to be on any of my teams. He's probably going to blow up. So make sure you draft him. But I will not be taking Christian McCaffrey anywhere. Derrick Henry, meanwhile, we talked about the passing and the quarterback rankings. We talked about how Lamar, again, right around 50% red zone touchdown conversion rate, which is unheard of efficiency. What if he does take a step back and they ultimately end up handing the ball off to the ultimate goal line hammer in Derrick Henry? I mean, he had 18 touchdowns last year. Nobody should bat an eye if he gets to 25. Scott Barrett made the argument he might get to over 30 and break the record there for LaDainian Tomlinson. So I'm all in on Derrick Henry, even if he's older. This is the workout routine. It's nuts. Ashton Genty, rookie phenom, one of the best prospects to come in. The line is a little concerning, but I think that we saw a little bit more juice in that San Fran game. They were opening up a bit more lanes. I have no real concerns over him. If you want to go Genty over Henry, be my guest because you prefer the younger guy. I think Taylor, I've seen a few people call him this year Saquon Barkley. I don't think he's got that line, but as a round two back that suddenly just walks into like 15, 20 touchdowns, I could see that with Taylor. He had over 100 fantasy points in just the last 3 weeks of the season in your fantasy playoffs. I think Jonathan Taylor can go bananas. Chase Brown, though, higher on the ECR, +4 in my running back rankings. So most have him down here at 11. The offensive coordinator compares him to Austin Eckler, who he used to work with in San Fran, or rather LA. Now LA, not San Diego anymore. Ultimately, though, he talks about how he's a focal point, a centerpiece of this offense. And that's what we saw last year. I mean, running back touch, I have a tweet out there. I forget the exact number, but it was like when Chase Brown, it was week 9 on, he became that starter. And I believe he had like 200 carries and opportunities, and other running backs had 10. Like, it was one of those things where he played on over 80% of the snaps, saw well over 80% of the touches. And I mean, they only got rid of Zach Moss. They brought in P. Ryan, who, he'll probably eat some of those pass blocking third down, but we don't really need Chase Brown in there. Anyways, they did draft Towers Brooks, who I like as a handcuff. But to me, I see a 3-down back with big playability and an offense that is going to score at the highest rate in the league. I don't know what's not to love about Chase Brown. So, I have him above the ECR by a bit. It is tricky, when you get to the Devon Achane, but he's dealing with a soft tissue thing. And it's just one of those things, like, as the season approaches, do I really want to spend a top 2 pick on a guy that has something lingering? I don't know about that. I mean, we do know in games with Tua, he was on pace for well over 100 receptions. The receiving stats were just insane, those splits. He would have been like a low-end wide receiver 1 on just his receiving totals. I believe it was 104 catches, 900 yards, and like 9 receiving touchdowns was his season-long pace with Tua at quarterback. He was the running back 2 with Tua in there. He was like running back 46 with Tua out. So you got the injury risk for himself. You got the risk of Tua. You got a bad line. It's just a little bit of warts here, especially with that soft tissue thing flaring up right before the season comes in. Love Achane, but it just makes me a tad nervous with my first or second overall pick. I'm probably actually even going to bump Bucky Irving. I mean, did you guys see that receiving touchdown in preseason week 2? There's all these reports that he's getting receiver-like usage in camp right now. He backs that up. He mosses a dude to the end zone on a beautifully thrown ball by Teddy Bridgewater there. It's just the sky's the limit if he continues to get that type of usage. I know that Rachaad White was out that game, but he played over 90% of the snaps. He had 100% of the backfield carries. And so any game last year that he saw 50% or more of the snaps, he was a top 12 running back in 6 of those 7 games. Crazy that it only happened 7 times that he saw half of the snaps or more. But when that happened, he was a guaranteed running back 1 pretty much. The only game he didn't make the top 12 running backs, he still scored 16 fantasy points. It was just a high-scoring week for the position. So Bucky Irving, an absolute god. Josh Jacobs right there. You got Marshawn Lloyd. You sneeze on the guy, his hamstring will tear. Pathetic. And so Josh Jacobs, no real backup presence. I mean, I think it's going a little underreported. I should tweet after the show. He was a bit sketchy in the beginning of the year. I believe he only had like 1 touchdown through 5 weeks, 6 weeks. And then he went on a tear and scored like 15 touchdowns in a 10-week span. Went absolutely bananas. So I love him. Christian McCaffrey, again, we already talked about that. So these are like the gods, the tier 1. Tier 2 with 4 through 11, my locked and running back 1s. Tier 3 is like, if you can get this guy as your running back 2, you should be singing praises at the mountains. If you get 2 of these top 11 guys, even better, right? You guys know of me, the bell cow breeder. I want horse. Give it to me. Once we get to tier 3, this is like the highest end running back 2. And if you did punt the position, let's say you went Brian Thomas, Malik Neighbors, okay, sweet, great start. I won't complain about that. These would be like the last acceptable running back 1s, but the elite running back 2s is this tier 3. So 12, Kyron Williams, 13, O'Marion Hampton, 14, James Cook, 15, Trevion Henderson, and 16, Ken Walker. Breece Hall was in this tier, but the latest usage has me a bit concerned. Kyron Williams is consistent as they get. Only Christian McCaffrey has a higher rate of top 12 weekly performances across their last 2 seasons. And McCaffrey also missed about half those games. So Kyron Williams, as steady as they come, he's going to be a low-end running back one nearly every week for you. And the way they're using their backs in the preseason, I bet you were getting full-on Tyron Williams. So he falls to round 3 sometimes. Hammer. It's boring. That's the only reason I can see why he should fall beyond round 2. He's my top 23rd overall player. O'Marion Hampton, though, you're talking about an athletic freak that three-way play, can do it all on 3 downs, can catch, can run, speed to break away, and now he enters a Chargers team. Unfortunately, lost Slater. That does hit the line quite hard, but ultimately, this still should be a top 12-ish offense for one of the most athletic freaks and talented runners. This class is supposed to be insane. I believe they're going to be insane, and Hampton is right there, my number 2 running back in the class behind only Denty, going into a pristine situation. So love him. Love that James Cook is back and signed in camp. 16 touchdowns, probably not going to happen again, but they're also talking about maybe elevating his receiving workload a bit. So I had him as a fade in the guy just because he does go like top 25-ish. That's too rich for me, but in those 30 to 35 range, I mean, lock him in as the running back too. Big play guy and an explosive offense. Awesome. TreVeyon Henderson's the biggest riser and the guy I'm the highest on here. Number 15, as you can see, +7 ECR. What's not to love about the guy? Maybe, again, it's my homerism coming through as a Pats fan, but every time he's on the field, you feel it, right? If you have highs and you watch him, he is the most explosive player, and it's not even close. It's by a mile, TreVeyon Henderson, whenever he's on the field. So I know it's going to be a timeshare. I went to camp, and Ramondre was rotating in ahead of him. Ramondre is probably going to lead this team in carries, is my guess. Even still, I think we got one of those situations where, Josh McDaniels, top 10 running back target share every single year he's called plays. Yeah, Tom Brady had a big part of that too, but it is a part of the design here. And you're getting this guy out in wheel routes and corner routes. He's just all over the field as a complete nightmare. They don't play him with the 2s at all. He's the only running back that has not mixed in with Josh Dobbs this entire preseason. They know what they got. The Vikings head coach, Brian Flores, he said he was blown away. He told Devin McCourty, who was announcing the game, he was blown away by TreVeyon Henderson in practice. He just has that, he is him. He is so good. I am so excited as a Patriots fan, and I don't think he needs to get 25 touches a week. If he gets there, I mean, then he's going to break fantasy and be Jamal Charles. I think he has that type of insane acceleration. He's an incredible pass protector too. He takes care of the rock. So he does all the things your coaches love that will earn you field time. And when the ball's in his hand, he's just an electric play waiting to happen every single time. He trucks people over. The practice I was at, he decleated freaking Von Miller, putting him in the ground and started a scrum where Vrabel dove in and started to bleed. And my Patriots fans were juicing all over the place. Oh my God, it's the best. So I love TreVeyon Henderson. I think he is anytime in round 4. He's really risen up the rankings too. I was a little skeptical, just how good is this guy really going to be? I thought he was going to be really good, but it was going to be a committee situation. And how high is your ceiling in a committee? You got to be elite to be in a committee and then still be a top 20 running back. Well, I think this guy's elite. I truly think he's going to be insane. I'm so excited for him. And then 16 is Ken Walker. One of those things, if you've watched any Seahawks preseason football, you've seen the Gary Kubiak inspired, his son, Clint Kubiak there calling the plays. The zone scheme is insane. It just opens up these massive gaping holes for the running backs. It has done that since, Gary Kubiak and Mike Shanahan worked together for the Broncos 25 years ago. And ever since then, anytime you have a Shanahan or Kubiak backfield, you go after. You think of Arian Foster, Clinton Portis, if you've played fantasy for a while. But even, when it's a Carlos Hyde, who's a mediocre running back, they go nuts. So when you get a talent like Ken Walker, who I do think is a top 10 overall running back talent, breakaway speed, great pass catcher, he's electric. I love Ken Walker. He's going to be a monster in this scheme for however long he's out there. That's the bugaboo, of course, is how healthy is he? Missed, 6 games last year, multiple games his rookie season. I understand the concerns there with health, but when you have him, it's going to be electric. And Charbonnet is not that expensive. We'll get to that tier in a little bit. You can go, top 40 pick on Ken Walker, pick 108, and just lock up the backfield, and you're going to have a running back 1 every single week. One of those guys will be a top 12 running back. I guarantee it. Then you move into tier 4, and if you want to bump Breece Hall into that acceptable running back 1, elite running back 2 tier, I could hear it, but they've talked all offseason. This is going to be a committee. We're going to have at least 2 to 3 backs involved, and everything in the preseason. You have Breece Hall and Braylon Allen, a near dead even split. Even Isaiah Davis has worked in with the first team. And I love Breece. I think he is going to be the best talent there. But you already saw how down I am on Justin Fields. I think this offense is going to be god awful. I just really don't believe in the Jets at all. And so what's it really worth to have the 50-50 split? Why take the more expensive guy? Go in on Braylon Allen going around 130 instead of Breece Hall going in the top 30 picks, right? So I like Breece, but he did look great last year. There's reports that they're more off the record, but some of the sources have said, he parties a lot in the week. He's out at the club at midnight and then going to practice. I don't know how valid those are. Either way, though, if this guy was the focal point of the backfield, yeah, I'd take another stab at Breece Hall early round 3 for a guy that was going top 5 the year before. Sure. Oh, okay. I can be into that, but in a 50-50 split, no thanks. Alvin Kamara, bell cow, old and crusty, it would seem, but continues to get it done. I do worry a little bit. He had a career year in efficiency rushing-wise because of that Kubiak scheme. Now that he's out of that, I like Kellen Moore. He was there with the Eagles with Barkley doing his thing. So I think there will be some interesting usage there for Kamara. I think he still will be the bell cow. I think we see a big drop-off in the yards per carry, though, the yards per touch. It worries me just a bit. And then you got James Conner, or rather RJ Harvey. RJ Steve Harvey, you can see +4 in my rankings, ECR. Love the guy. Sean Payton backfield's top 2 in expected fantasy points nearly every single season. I think it's 10 of 17, might even be 12 of 17, that they've scored these top 2 as a whole backfield. Even last year with absolute bums, they were top 5 in target percentage to running backs. That's what I just love about them. They loved does Sean Payton to pepper his running backs in the receiving game, and that ultimately ends up with a ton of expected and actually produced fantasy points as well. So RJ Harvey looking very explosive this preseason, had a nice 8-yard touchdown run last week. I do think it will be a timeshare with him and Dobbins. I think Dobbins is a nice value too, but ultimately Dobbins has his own injury history, and I want the more explosive player. Speaking of Alvin Kamara, I see RJ Harvey is kind of, he called him, Sean Payton literally called him like my pet cat or something like that. This was a guy we had to get. He became our kind of pet through the process of evaluating, and they reached big time in round 2 to get him, whether you agree with the talent evaluation or not. They clearly love him. I'd like Sean Payton. I trust his evaluations, so I'm all in on RJ Harvey. I think between him and Henderson that go like late 5th, those are going to be like the 2 running back league winners, in my opinion. Get those rookies for sure. Connor, though, if you want safety, go Connor instead, because you're going to get top 10 running back production per game. The question is, he had his healthiest year last year. Does that stay? Maybe. Maybe he does at his late career just stay healthier than he ever did. I'm a little bit worried. They are talking about bumping up Trey Benson a bit, but yeah, at running back 20, James Conner is going to be a 15 to 20 point per game guy. In every fantasy playoffs, he seems to go off too. And then Chuba Hubbard, a little bit lower than the ECR. I think Rico Dowdle is going to be a bit more involved than a lot of people do. That being said, you can't go wrong with Chuba. It's just a matter of, I prefer the excitement of RJ Harvey and Trevion Henderson to Chuba, who we know what he is, and he does everything solid. He's going to score solid fantasy points, and he does have a big weekly ceiling, but I think Dowdle's going to kind of cap that ceiling. That ceiling was really baked in the fact that he was, in terms of touches per game, snaps per game, he was right there in like the 70 to 80% backfield share. I don't know that we get that this year. They paid Dowdle pretty decent money. So I think Chuba just a little bit. I'd rather he's not going to win any leagues like he did last year because he was a 12th round pick last year. As a 5th round pick, he's going to be fine. He's going to be safe. Maybe you do 0 running back and you take RJ Harvey and Chuba Hubbard and you pair them together, right? He's that type of floor guy. Nothing overly exciting. Then I get, after that tier though of like elite running back 2s to quality running back 2s is that tier 4 again. Breece Hall 17, Alvin Kamara 18, RJ Harvey 19, James Conner 20, 21 Chuba. You get to tier 5, and I do think it's a pretty steep drop off. These guys as my low end running back 2s and a very solid flex. Yes, I'll give them that title, but the ceiling feels a little bit capped to most of these guys. Other than I will say Isaiah Pacheco, who's at 22 for me, +3 ECR, as you can see there. You see that catch, the 22-yard one that he had the preseason. The juice is back. Like at the end of last year, he just did not look like Pacheco at all. He didn't have that bounce to his step, the contact, the way he just bowled people over. It was completely missing from his game when he finally did get back. He looks fully healthy. All the talks are that they've really elevated his receiving role. I mean, he was going around late second last year. I took him late second in my college league because he was looking like a true 3-down back that we haven't had for Andy Reid in quite some time. we might be getting that same guy just at a 6-round discount right now. So I do really like Pacheco. I think he is the guy of this tier. Like if somebody out of, I'll just read the tier off: 22 Pacheco, 23 DeAndre Swift, 24 Tony Pollard, 25 David Montgomery, and 26 Aaron Jones. If any of these guys are like, well, they were a top 10 running back, yeah, Pacheco's the one that I would most likely put my bet on here. Swift's not a bad bet either, just the Ben Johnson inspired scheme. You saw them last, what was 3-4 rushing touchdowns as a team. The line looks great, getting great movement. DeAndre Swift has played with Ben Johnson. That's a great, that was his highest yards per touch season was under Ben Johnson. And they just made no moves. They drafted Kyle Monunga as a fine sleeper. And I'm intrigued a little bit by it, but they've got really no one else. Roschon Johnson, I mean, I don't think the coach has said a word about him. So DeAndre Swift is looking like a potential 3-down back in a Ben Johnson offense on a Bears team that looks like it's going to take a massive step forward this year. So I do like DeAndre Swift. It's just a matter of can he stay healthy. But he's enough. I guess I shouldn't just say Pacheco's the only one I could be like, oh, wow, top 10 season. I'm not surprised at all. If Swift, who we've seen some glimpses from throughout his career, if this is his best opportunity to do a top 10, truly season. So I actually do like Swift here. Pollard is a very safe, running back 2 flex type of guy. This tier actually really isn't that bad. Like if these are your running back 2s, okay. I think there's a little bit more like 20 point per week type of juice with the other tier. But these guys really aren't bad. Pollard, especially with Spears going down, he already was playing nearly every snap, and then Spears gets hurt. And now you got Cam Ward potentially elevating this offense. Solid. David Montgomery, you know what you're getting. I do think that part of why you see Gibbs at 3 and Montgomery a little bit lower than I probably normally have him ranked is I do think we start to get closer to 60-40, and Montgomery becomes a bit more of that. If he doesn't score a touchdown, he probably didn't do much for your lineup type of guy. That being said, I think far more weeks than not, he's going to score you a touchdown, and sometimes two. He's a bulldozer, very talented, and he does have that upside. Like if something happens to Gibbs, we always say, when Gibbs doesn't have Montgomery, goes nuts. Yeah, I know Montgomery's not going to do what Gibbs does, but he would be a 25-plus point a week guy. So he's got some real good contingency upside, like the ultimate handcuff with benefits. David Montgomery right there. And 26, Aaron Jones, coming off a career high, I think, in touches. Looked really solid. You do have now, though, Jordan Mason, a potential goal line vulture. He might, I think Jones probably gets a bump down here into tier 6, which is like, yeah, it could be your flex. These are guys I'd much rather have on my bench and see what happens type of situation, though. Jaylen Warren, the efficiency since he's joined the league is insane. Last year was definitely a down year. He was playing through a lot of injuries. But the other 2 seasons, he was always consistently top 3 in yards after contact per attempt and in juke rate and all those metrics that talk about what does a back do when he finally touches the ball. He just wasn't getting the rock much. Well, Caleb Johnson, he's playing deep into the third quarter, playing behind Kenny Gainwell in the preseason. I know that's not going to be the case in the regular season, but it's a concern. People act like I tweeted and people will go bananas saying, you are an idiot. Caleb Johnson's the truth. Maybe he is, but he shouldn't be playing against insurance agents in the third quarter if he's the truth. If the team wouldn't be putting him out there if they were like, this is our future. And so Jaylen Warren, I think he's going to get the first crack at this. He should be ranked ahead of Caleb Johnson, in my opinion. But he goes like a round or 2 later. So I think Warren's a great value. I think Charbonnet, we talked about loving the Kubiak zone scheme. We talked about Ken Walker having an injury concern. Well, there you go. Charbonnet, anytime he's going to be the running back one, he averaged 19.5 fantasy points per game as a starter last year when Ken Walker was out. That'd be the number 2 running back last year in points per game. And I think this scheme's even better. So I love Charbonnet. You can see plus 10 his ADP. He got a big bump up. He had 9 carries, 45 yards, and a touchdown in preseason week 2. You love to see it. Brian Robinson, I don't know what to do with this guy because now he's apparently getting shopped around. Ja'Cory Cross getting married? God, let's go. JCM. Little Bill. I'm all about Ja'Cory Cross getting married. It's this year's Bucky Irving. That tweet's already on the timeline. So, yeah, I'm not that high on Brian Robinson. That being said, in training camp, he was clearly rotating in as the first guy. If he is the main guy, you got easy 12 touchdown upside. It's something along the lines in the draft guide I talk about how he's been a top 24 running back in 60-70% of his games the last 2 years. Like just a really sturdy floor. The ceiling, I mean, he's only got like 1 or 2 top 12 games in that span. But you got yourself just okay, I'm going to get you 12 points in your flex. Nice. Okay, thanks, Brian. that kind of guy there. We just talked about Caleb Johnson, the Steelers backfield, and I'm clearly lower, -3 ECR on him. I'd probably actually rather have Tracy. This is why I like this exercise, because as I talk about the guys, yeah, you know what? I'm going to bump Tracy above Caleb Johnson. I might even bump up Jordan Mason ahead of him, the goal line back in an offense for the Vikings that I love. J.J. McCarthy, I just said he's my favorite quarterback sleeper. I think they're going to put up points, and we got the goal line hammer there in Jordan Mason. And wrapping this the top 40 to 50 running backs up, J.K. Dobbins, Sean Payton's backfields, again, top 2 in total fantasy points in 10 to 17 years. I think he's a beast. I thought he looked really good last year, and his recovery surprised me a ton. So now you put him behind the number 2 line in Pro Football Focus's grades. Yeah, RJ Harvey, time split, I get it, but I think Dobbins is a candidate to, if Harvey's the Kamara, well, let's talk about Dobbins as potentially the Ingram. And we saw Ingram put up, 12 touchdown plus seasons under Sean Payton. Joe Mixon's the big question mark. What do we do with this guy? We haven't got any updates going in, other than that week 1 seems very, very questionable at best. So I'm worried about him there. That definitely a concern with Mixon. Probably a guy I'm not touching right now until I get a firmer update. And maybe other people will capitalize on the value and as he falls. Once he gets to the hundreds, of course, it's Joe Mixon. This guy was putting up 20 points regularly for the Texans last year. In terms of spike weeks, 20-plus points for running backs, I believe he was number 2 or 3 in his percentage of those types of games. So, Joe Mixon definitely has a ton of upside should he get healthy. I just really worry about what's going on there. And we'll wrap up the top. We're going to go top 36 running backs and top 36 wide receivers. I'm looking at the time, just there's no way. So all these rankings, though, are free, again, at rotostreetjournal.com. You can check them all out. So wrapping up the list is Quinshon Judkins, who got that news that he will not have any charges filed against him. And ultimately, he has not yet signed with the team, so there is some risk here. When will he join camp? How far behind will he be? But I don't think Sampson – I like Sampson. I do. I think he's an intriguing prospect out of Tennessee there, where it was the SEC Player of the Year at the running back position. I am a fan. But Judkins is a whole different level. We're talking about a 225-pound beast that ran a 4.37, 40-something crazy like that. His RAS score was in first 99th percentile. It was insane. The guy is a side speed terror. Apparently was just tearing up OTAs before all this unfortunate stuff happened. But with the legal situation now cleared, the runway is there for him to join the team. Let's say you're drafting on Saturday. If he's still out with the team, okay, sure. Don't take Judkins. But as of right now, he's still falling the 110s, 120s in best ball, and I'm just going to scoop him and see what happens there. And then you can see, I said top 36 running backs. You can see my favorite running back sleeper, plus 12 ECR, Jadon Blue. Going to be an absolute beast. We talked about him on the sleeper show. This tier down here is the whereas could I potentially plug in right from week 1 J.K. Dobbins? Yeah. Do I want to? No. But if I've done a 0 running back thing or a hero running back thing and he's my running back 2, I think he's a nice bridge. And these are the guys the tier 7 guys. So to talk quickly, I did say top 50, so I'll just rattle off the names, but we're not going to dive into each of their case. But you'll see a lot of the overall summary of this tier is an ambiguous backfield that to an offense I could see taking the next step. So Jadon Blue, I think he's going to be the best Cowboys back. I think that offense is going to be a top 10 offense. The math's pretty simple. The guy's got breakaway speed. Love Jadon Blue. That backfield is so underwhelming behind him. I think he's really going to thrive. I love Cam Scatabo as a process. 37, Cam Scatabo. 38, Travis Etienne. But then take Bigsby is my 40. And then you can see Bashal Tootin, 42. So I got 3 Jags running backs in this tier. Someone out there is going to be a top 20 running back. I have a very strong feeling there. I love Liam Cohen. Who's it going to be? You can see I really actually don't. I'm going to bump Travis Etienne down. Bigsby started above him this last week. Bigsby's looked better throughout the whole training camp from what I see. But the guy that I really love is Bashal Tootin. Who's going well behind each of them. I think he has far more upside, 4.3 speed, 99th percentile after contact rate. Exactly what Liam Cohen saw in Bucky Irving. That's the tackle breaking. That's what Bashal Tootin does very, very well too. But Ramondre Stevenson mixed in there at 39. You can see Ja'Cory Cross-Kamara, Little Bill. These trade rumors have me bumping him up, but if I'm drafted today, I'm not leaving my draft without Ja'Cory Cross-Kamara, because if Brian Robinson does get traded, this guy's explosive. Like I said, I think he might be the next Bucky Irving. The fact that they're even considering trading Brian Robinson tells you how good they feel about Ja'Cory Cross-Kamara. So he's in there at 43, Eckler's in 46, again, largely because of these trade rumors. And if it happens, Cross-Kamara will be jumping Quinshon Judkins and Joe Mixon, probably better than J.K. Dobbins. This is kind of the hedge bet right now where I'm plus 35 UCR, but that's largely baking in, if something happens with Brian Robinson, he's going to thrive. And even if not, I still really like the guy. And then Ray Davis, Benson, you can kind of see this as the handcuff with benefits, exciting bench stash tier to wrap up my top 50 running backs. Alrighty, Wolfpack, we are going to turn our attention to the wide receivers. 600 of you here. Thank you so much for joining me today. I did want to quickly pump before we get to the wide receiver tier. This is the draft guide. The link is in the description. But if you want to support your boy, this is the only thing I charge for all year. Absolutely crushed it in last year's draft guide. Sales have been amazing so far. You guys are so kind out there. Those of you who bought it, the feedback has come in. People have been so kind and writing great reviews for the guide. But if you want to support your boy, you like how I break these things down, and you enjoy this content, do consider checking out the guide. It's a way to support your small little local fantasy guy over here. But over 150, over 170 pages, I'll tell you right now. Who are the league winners? Who are the over 200 player profiles broken down? If you do best ball, I have a lot of redraft versus best ball. I've got over 30 late round penny stocks. We did a sleeper show last week. And so I gave 10 of those penny stocks away. Can't give you everybody, of course. And so I give those 30 late round penny stocks set to explode. And as this shows again, multi-year accuracy was number 2 from 2022 to 24. I should have had that top spot so close. And then number 6 last year in FantasyPros accuracy. So, I'm doing something right if I'm ranking that high in here. And I'll year in and year out, the same people keep coming back for the guide, and they say it's their go-to thing. So if you're new around here, but you want to see my best stuff, my fantasy soul, well, that guide is what it is. And you of course are supporting a new dad over here, trying to get his baby through daycare. My God, those prices are not cheap. So please do consider checking that out. Thank you again for watching this. But if you don't have the means, I get it. A free way to help me out is that thumbs up button. So you can support your boy that way as well. Hitting the like, the thumbs up, the shares, the retweets, and helping the channel grow. Hitting the subscribe button if you're new around here. Would love to have you long term. All righty. We are going to now go back in and jump into our top wide receivers. We'll go into like the 36 to 40-ish range. We'll see what tier makes sense to drop off. I do have Jamar Chase in a tier by himself. If you want to put CD and Jefferson in there, maybe. But to me, like it's just the Burrow connection, the Triple Crown winner, the youngest player to ever do that. And now the defense looks even worse this year. I see no reason why Chase isn't going to do what he can do. And I would never consider Lamb or Jefferson above Chase. And that's what I do with tiers. Like I like the guys better than I rank ahead of them, but I would at least see a world where these guys could beat him out. CeeDee Lamb beat him out 2 years ago. His season 2 years ago was actually better than what Chase just did. So could he? Sure. But now you got George Pickens to contend with. I do have Lamb just ahead of Jefferson. This we talked about in that first round show. I keep referencing. Check it out. But the hamstring injury, the question of like, what is J.J. McCarthy versus we know exactly what Dak and CD are when they're both healthy. The concern is, does Dak get hurt? But even when Dak got hurt, he was playing pretty good ball, CeeDee Lamb, with Cooper Rush there. Those are the clear big three. Again, Chase number 1, tier 2 being Lamb, Jefferson. And then it is a very, very tough tier for me in tier 3 between number 4, Malik Neighbors, 5, Amon-Ra St. Brown, 6, Nico Collins, and 7, Brian Thomas Jr. But I tell you, I lose sleep over this tier every night because part of me is like, I think Brian Thomas is best. I do think Neighbors, if anything, Neighbors, I could jump into tier 2. The only thing keeping him back from tier 2 is the toe injury, now a back thing's going on. You saw it last year too. Like he makes these crazy grabs and he limps off to the sideline. He's back in and he catches a touchdown the next play. But like he does worry me a little bit. He's a smaller guy and he seems to always have something going on. But number 3 in fantasy points per game by a rookie all time last year while playing with complete garbage. And now I don't love Russell Wilson, but you can't tell me that's not a humongous upgrade over what he was dealing. And then you look at what Jackson Dart's doing this preseason. That's the ceiling. The real ceiling is Jameis Winston coming in and just lighting him up like he used to with Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. Jerry Jeudy was the wide receiver 4 with Jameis Winston. If he could be the wide receiver 4, what do you think Malik Neighbors would do with Winston? That ceiling exists at least this year. Winston, Jackson Dart, like being like, we're taking Neighbors ahead of Lamb and Jefferson now. I think that exists. I think as long as Wilson's out there, it's a little bit hit or miss, but we've seen those moon bombs from Wilson looking pretty good. So Neighbors, to me, the only issue is the injuries right now, and I don't think they're going to end up being much of anything. So he's the clear 4 for me. And then if you want to shuffle around St. Brown versus Collins versus Brian Thomas, I love them all. I think they're all, this tier is like the last true league-winning wide receivers. You jump down to tier 4, and a lot of people would probably put Puka in tier 3. I love the guy. He won me leagues 2 years ago as a pickup. Went back in last year. He averaged over 4 yards per run, like 47% targets per run. Insane efficiency, but you got Stafford dealing with this back stuff. Then you had Devontae Adams, who has ranked top 3 in target share in, I believe, like all but 1 of the last 8 seasons. And I do think Puka's the number one guy here. I have him above Devontae Adams, but we can't pretend like Devontae Adams isn't a massive mouth to feed here. So I do worry a little bit about Stafford's. I worry a lot about Stafford's back. I worry a little bit about Nakua's injury history. He missed 5 games last year, a couple games his rookie year, dating back to college. He's kind of a smattering of games there. And I do worry about what is this Devontae Adams impact going to be. Drake London could lead the league in targets this year. Very well could. So I have him at 9, and I have A.J. Brown at 10. And those guys are the I do prefer, Brian Thomas, Nico, St. Brown, Neighbors, round 1 worthy. I'll take them in the first. Whereas these guys, if I go, let's say I get Jahmyr Gibbs and any of these 3 are staring at me in round 2, beautiful. Happy to have him as my running back or wide receiver 1 rather. I don't even have quite the break fantasy ceiling of the top 7 guys, but 8, 9, 10, all wide receiver 1s in my book. You don't need me to spell it out for A.J. Brown. So talented. If he was in an offense that threw it over half the time, literally they ran more than they passed last year, the Eagles. I think that does tilt a little bit. And then we've seen A.J. Brown put up, what was he just a few seasons ago? I wonder if I don't know if they do this on Fantasy Pros. Yeah, wide receiver 4 and wide receiver 5. And that, so we've seen it even in low volume attacks that this guy can thrive. So yeah, I am still all about A.J. Brown there in my top 10, no doubt. And then you get to tier 5, and this is more so the let's say you went running back. Could these guys be your wide receiver 1? Sure. But these are if I was naming tiers, probably the lowest end wide receiver 1s and elite wide receiver 2s. Ladd McConkey, love the player, hate the passing volume. Greg Roman, 28th in pass attempts last year with Justin Herbert. Been 28th or fewer in all but 1 season. And he's called plays 10 years. 9 of those years, he's been 28th or lower in pass attempts. And I thought I was going to switch. I was like, okay, it's not a Roman thing. He's got Justin Herbert. He's going to sling it right now. So then you add Keenan Allen, who last time when he was here, he averaged 11 targets a game and 20 fantasy points per game. I don't think Keenan Allen's going to take Ladd McConkey's job by any stretch of the imagination, but that's a big mouth to feed. You draft Trey Harris. Keandre Landry-Smith is now showing out. I think there's a bit more to contend with in an already condensed and small pie. So as much as I love McConkey, as much as the efficiency metrics popped, it's just a little bit of concern there. Number 12 is Tyreek Hill. And I tweeted out last night, one of the biggest decision factors of 2025 drafts is going to be round 3 Tyreek Hill. He's either going to win whoever took him in the leagues, or he's just going to be a wasted 3rd-round pick because he's got the drama going on. You never know when to start him. He's hurt again. I lean on the side that he's going to smash. I really like Tyreek Hill. When he falls early, mid, sometimes even late 3rd, late 3rd, no brainer. Just take the guy and pray and hope. Even then, if you take him in the late 3rd and he does have last year's stats would not be late 3rd worthy, but he still had a few monster days and 950-ish yards, 7 touchdowns. It wasn't the end of the world season. But he put on Snapchat the other day, I'm going for 3,000 yards. Of course, he's not going to do that, but he's motivated. You're watching him race Olympic athletes. He looks good. His team vibes are all kind of sketchy. Him and Tua trading barbs and all that. There's a lot of risk with it, but now that you're in round 3, if you did get 2,000-yard Tyreek Hill, we're talking the 3rd overall pick last year in drafts. If he's even close to that and you're getting in round 3, you've gone Jahmyr Gibbs, Bucky Irving, and then Tyreek Hill is getting you 1,800 yards and 10 touchdowns. Forget about it. You've won your league. And so I do think he's, of course, Ladd McConkey, I like a little bit more than him. But if somebody was out of this tier going to Tyreek Hill, I could definitely see that being the case. You got the contingency upside with T. Higgins, of course, if something happened to Chase. He did average right around 20 points per game in losses as well when they're chasing points, which they're going to often be. So I like T. Higgins, but it is just so boom or bust. So best ball, love the pick. Redraft it is just one of those things where it's all right, T. Higgins got me 0 this week. And then you consider benching him, and he has 41 when you finally pull the trigger. He's one of those guys. It's just a little bit annoying. Mike Evans apparently looks like his old self in camp, as if he's never missed a beat. So love him there at wide receiver 14. He'll probably outplay that. He'll probably be better than that. He's going to have his, 11th, 12th straight 1,000-yard season, break Jerry Rice's record maybe this year. Love Mike Evans. Nothing not to love there, even if Buka's looking like a clear stud. So that tier, if they're my wide receiver 1, because I have 2 elite running backs, or I took, Lamar Jackson. I took Brock Bowers. I took a detour at an elite onesie, right? And then I need a wide receiver 1. I'm okay with, again, 11 McConkey, 12 Tyreek Hill, T. Higgins at 13, and Mike Evans at 14. Would love them as my wide receiver 2. Totally fine if they're my wide receiver 1, though, because I've done something, I've built a really strong foundation at the other positions. Once I get to tier 6, these are like, yeah, these should be your wide receiver 2s. Clearly, I'm a little bit lower on JSN at 16. I have Adams at 15. He's probably going to fall a little bit depending on – Sean McVay has a press conference today, so we'll see what he has to say about Stafford. I'm a little nervous it's going to be like a retirement, a back surgery, something. I don't know. I'm scared there. JSN, a lot of people would probably put in that above tier with Mike Evans, with T. Higgins. I have -4 ECR on him. I am a little skeptical. I think it's going to be a very run-heavy attack with this Kubiak-inspired scheme. I think Cooper Kupp does a lot of the things. JSN does everything that Cooper Kupp does, but better at this point in their careers, yes. But he might man that slot role because that's all he really can do at this point is Cooper Kupp. That's where JSN really did his best damage last year. Can he play outside? Absolutely. He's talented. He's very good. But I could see that being a little bit of a concern. So I'm a little bit lower on Jackson Smith and Jigba. I'm clearly very high on Jameson Williams, talking about new OC John Morton, how they want to prioritize explosives. That's why I'm higher on Jahmyr Gibbs than even Saquon Barkley. I think Jameson Williams benefits from that as well. They say they're moving him in the slot a lot this offseason. The route tree has grown. He's added new branches to it. So, I mean, when the ball's in his hand, he's as electric as they come. We've seen it on the end arounds. We've seen it on the handful of screens that he's gotten. They elevate that role even more. I mean, there is a world Jameson Williams is better than Amon-Ra St. Brown. I like Amon-Ra way better. I think him and Goff, I would never bet money on that. But he's the more explosive Jameson Williams, more explosive player, deadlier with the ball in his hand. If some of those classic Amon-Ra St. Brown screens go to JMO this year and he rips off a handful more touchdowns and suddenly they're like, you know what? Maybe this guy's our true number 1. Would not blow my mind. It'd be surprising. It would not completely shock me. So as you can see, plus 11 ADP, plus 8 ECR. I'm all in on JMO this year. I think he is going to be one of those league swinging picks. Have him above DJ Moore at 18. That little congested bear situation. Is Roma Dunze the true number 1, as they say? Luther Burden is really the sneaky guy I actually really like there. But they are moving DJ to the backfield. There's a lot of Amon-Ra-ish usage to DJ Moore in camp. But I think it's a pretty congested situation for a quarterback I don't really love, as you saw with Caleb Williams. Rashee Rice is another one of those key deciding points that's just so hard to know. Has a disciplinary hearing at the 30th of September and is going to face a suspension. Is it 4 games? That he's a steal at 19. Is it 8 games? Probably not worth 19 overall. So we shall see. I'm kind of leaning into the Chiefs being the NFL's little pet and him getting a light suspension of 4 games. And you weather it. You drop Jalen Royals late as like a Rashee Rice clone handcuff, and you get through it. And then you have a guy that is a top 12 wide receiver every single week, no doubt about it. I mean, he was averaging over 30% of the targets. Speaking of Amon-Ra St. Brown, this was a layup role, Rashee Rice, finding those soft spots, getting the dink and dunk. So big fan of Rice, even with the looming suspension. It's just a matter of how long does it end up being. Clearly, I'm a little more bullish on it being not so bad. Now you can see one of the other guys in this tier, who Garrett Wilson was right there with the McConkeys, the Tyreeks, as acceptable wide receiver ones. I don't feel that anymore. I think Fields is that bad. If Tyrod Taylor takes over, maybe I'd change my tune. And that's when you know things are bad, when you're clamoring for Tyrod Taylor to be the quarterback. But he's got 5 preseason targets. Garrett Wilson has 0 catches. The ball is just so ugly coming off of Fields' hand. And it's just one of those seasons like last year, they led the NFL in pass attempts, and you had Rodgers, who is certainly not prime Rodgers, but he could throw the ball. Fields, I don't know, can throw the ball, and they're probably going to lead the league in rush attempts. So to me, it's like, how does Garrett Wilson make his money this year? I was early in the offseason, bet on the talent. We saw Fields make DJ Moore his best year of his career happen with Justin Fields at quarterback. So it's not the end of the world. I don't know. The way he's playing, it does not look like the Bears even level of Justin Fields. So I'm worried about Garrett Wilson. Cortland Sutton, you're going to get 9-10 touchdowns. You're going to probably get 1,000 yards. Bo Nix is, very, very diet Michael Thomas, but that move the chains guy, he's very safe. If you want to take him over Rice because you don't want to deal with the suspension, over DJ Moore because you don't want to deal with the congested situation, totally fine with it. You get no pushback from me. Xavier Worthy, plus a few spots ECR, just, the thing if Rice was to get spent at the beginning of the year, that would be better for Rice's value because you're not dealing with bye weeks and the dog days of the fantasy season, right? But it also could have backfired in that, like, that would have given Xavier Worthy a runway to, you know what, yeah, maybe he can play the Rice role, but he's got way better speed. I don't know if he can play that role, but that door could have been open. Now I think, with Rashee Rice playing at least the first 4 weeks, it's going to be a lot harder for Xavier Worthy to really leap up and say, I am the true number one. All the camp reports are Rashee Rice is at like a 50% target share every day type of thing. I like Worthy. I think he's explosive. I think we saw glimpses of that down the stretch of the season where over the last, 7 weeks, including the playoffs, he was at 18 or more fantasy points and I think 5 of 7. So we really started to see that role elevate. I think the player is fine, but I do think he is behind Rice for me. He just can get drilled off the line. I don't know. I don't think he can. He's not built to be that true number one receiver, in my opinion. Travis Hunter, you'll see plus 9 ECR here. Played 11 of 12 team snaps for the first team in the preseason week 1. Liam Cohen talks around 80% snap rate. I mean, if Travis Hunter gets 80% of the snaps and routes, he should have been going probably around. Like, he's the type of guy that would land in this tier. It's like, yeah, Travis Hunter could have been your wide receiver 1. And I really think he might. So I like Travis Hunter a lot. I think Calvin Ridley gets a big bump up. One of the smoother route runners in the league, finally gets some decent quarterback play. They talked about using him in like their Jamar Chase type of move around role last year, and they did. And they just had Will Levis. I mean, nobody can play with Will Levis. And so I think Cam Ward, we already saw the first week of the preseason, Cam Ward threw for, I believe it was 56 yards, and Calvin Ridley had 50 of them. 3 targets, 3 catches, 50 yards, looking just like a great rapport. They've been gushing about each other day in and day out. So I really like Calvin Ridley. This whole tier, too, a lot of these guys, the ones that you avoid, like the Garrett Wilson's going in round 3, because I think, Calvin Ridley is pretty much right there, but he goes round 6. And in the draft guy, I talk a bit about how there is like you get your elite wide receiver 1, and then you can just wait to, round 6 and start plucking the guys in this tier, the Calvin Ridleys, the Travis Hunters going around 7. There's so many juicy names that I want to take, 3, 4, 5 guys in this range, but I want to load up the rest of my roster so I can kind of set myself up to just like, all right, 6 to 9, I'm hitting wide receivers. So yeah, I love it. I like Ted McMillan, the target hog potentially. It was fantasy points. They talked about this. I believe a rookie wide receiver has finished top 6 in points a game per game for 4 straight seasons. Now, clearly, I like Travis Hunter a little bit more than Tet, but Tet's the safer bet. He's already clearly the target hog for Bryce Young in early preseason action. Love the prospect too. So, if you want the safer route, I do think Tet's a good value there. I mean, I'd say he's fallen to like 6 and 7 in ESPN leagues. That's a joke. Smash it. Because Dave Canales, that X receiver role, that's always very, very valuable in his scheme and system. Terry McLaurin, it really is just a matter of like, is this guy going to play or not? He's still holding out. Apparently it was activated by the PUP, but they said like directly that this has nothing to do with his contract. There's been no movement. When he's in, he got Jaden Daniels' number 1 weapon, and he's a great touchdown scorer last year. Do the touchdowns regress a little bit? Does he start slow now because he's missed so much camp? If he does come back, a lot of risks there. So you see -7 ECR, just not a guy I'm really touching right now. And then we get to tier 7. These are, who belongs in the above tier is George Pickens. Like I am obsessed with George Pickens this year. I think he's going to feast. So I think he jumps Zay Flowers. I think I might even bump him above Terry McLaurin at this point. So yeah, I'll be diving back to again, why I like talking about these. I see Pickens there. I'm like, no, he deserves to be higher. All the talking campuses, chemistry is unreal with Dak. They're using him after the catch more. His route tree is far more expansive than what we ever saw in Pittsburgh. You got CeeDee Lamb on the other side. So how do you double this guy? He's now facing number 2 corners. He's going to destroy them. So yeah, I love Pickens. I might be a little bit boom busty, but I think he is going to me, this is like, he's like T. Higgins in the NFC, but for 2 rounds cheaper. That's kind of how I view George Pickens. Not quite as talented as T. Higgins, a little bit of a gap there, but not much. I really do believe in the talent of Pickens. So 28 hit for him, 27 for Zay Flowers, young, exciting guy that plays as the potential number 1 for Lamar. Okay, easy. Yeah, round 7, sure. Why not? Jalen Waddle with no Jonnu Smith. I mean, there's rumblings that Waddle might be the true number 1 wide receiver there. that he's been better than Tyreek Hill in camp. Do I buy it? No, because the guy always is hurt and you can never depend on him. But he's got a runway. He's got a path this year. So I like Waddle. Devonta Smith, clearly below ECR on him at -7. Nothing to do with the player. I think he's a stud. It's just a matter of, again, a team that ran the ball more than they passed it last year. The only team in the last decade to do that was the Eagles. And now you're looking at the second mouth to feed in the passing game that's already taking a big backseat to the run game. If something happened to A.J. Brown, you're talking Devonta Smith right there as my number 10 receiver. So maybe I do need to bake that into this ranking a little bit more. And he does have some quality games each and every year. He's safe and steady, but he has some disappearing acts too. So Devonta, it's a tricky one. That's one where it's just the volume is going to always cap how high the ceiling is unless something happened to A.J. Brown. Ricky Pearsall at 31, plus 12 ADP, plus 6 ECR. Clearly, I love the guy. The engine of the passing game potential here with Brandon Ayuk shelved for at least 6 weeks is what Shanahan's saying, with Juwan Jennings not practicing right now. I do think Kittle's going to be that guy. Don't get me wrong, but Pearsall for the wide receivers could be that guy. One drive of action this preseason so far, and he goes, four targets, 3 catches, 42 yards, and a drive. 57% target share or targets per route run, 6 yards per route run. Just looking great. And Party gushing about the guy, raving about them building the offseason chemistry. Pearsall's not freelancing as much, and he's now playing within the system that's allowing him to really thrive and grow. As you can see, one of the two guys down here, Marvin Harrison and DK Metcalf, 32-33, -14 ECR on Harrison, -12 ECR on DK. Two of the guys that I'm going to label as big busts this year. I am not buying any of them at their price. DK Metcalf, you got Arthur Smith, and he has not had a wide receiver since A.J. Brown capped out at wide receiver 22, I believe, in fantasy points per game. A.J. Brown, one of the best of all time. I don't think DK Metcalf is on A.J. Brown's level at all. A couple levels below at this point in their careers, at least. And it's just he trades for Jonnu Smith, and then you can already see it where DK Metcalf has 2 really good games on the year, and the rest people are just like, what the hell is Arthur Smith doing? How could we have seen this happening? Oh, it happens every single year. Drake London, his first year out of the Arthur Smith year, has a top 5 fantasy season. With Arthur Smith, had never been a top 24 wide receiver for 2 seasons. I think he was outside the top 40 wide receivers. And I think Drake London's better than DK Metcalf. So I very much worry about this offense. There is the rumblings, now, but it's Aaron Rodgers' offense, and he's got no one else to throw to, and they built a great chemistry. Maybe that could be true, but it worries me. It worries me a lot. And Marvin Harrison, I just whether he's good or not, I don't think Drew Petzing is using him nearly as a way to show it off. He's not a yak guy. He never really was. He's okay at the contested catch, but didn't look great at it last year. In college, he was fine. Smooth route runner. That was never getting open last year. And Kyler Murray kind of stinks. And they don't generate those layup looks that, the first downs per route run, none. Very, very few there. He's just a big play artist. And yeah, he's jacked now. There's some pictures where he looks huge. And he's disappearing every preseason game and every camp practice. It's Marvin didn't really stand out today. I don't know. I don't love it. And then Deebo Samuel, I might even have above those guys because he might be the number 1 for Jaden Daniels. Apparently, I saw him in camp and he was moving around. Well, he still looked like he had a little bit of a gut on him, but 9% body fat, 200 down from 220 to 200 pounds, I believe, was the weight. He dealt with pneumonia last year. Deebo really is one of those things where it's if he's in shape and explosive, he's been a top 10 receiver. If he's fat, he's been outside the top 30. He looked pretty good when I saw him. He's mossing people all over the field in contested catch situations. Apparently, him and Daniels have great chemistry. It's going to be tough for me because I had Deebo in a lot of leagues last year, and he kind of stuck it to me by the end of the year. But I'll give him a second chance, and certainly right now, if I can get him in round 7, and suddenly McLaurin doesn't show up, and you got number 1 for Jaden Daniels, you're talking about he should have been going in round 3. So I like buying Deebo a lot right now. Then we go to tier 8, which is still if you wanted to lump these tiers together, I honestly tier 7 and 8. I would cut, if I could label it tier 7.5. It's very similar, but with a few more warts to this profile. Where I like these guys as my 2. I'm okay with them as my 2. I love them as my 3. I'd be, Jordan Addison, 3-game suspension. Once he's back, 19 touchdowns in 2 seasons. Love him. Stephon Diggs, probably the number one for Drake May, who I love. Yeah, I'm into that. At 36, looking pretty solid. His routes. There's some reports that he's been a little bit of a pain in the ass, but I like my diva wide receivers. I want my number one receiver to be doing pink coke off Cardi B's bum. Like, that sounds great to me. and just he's still looking smooth in his routes. I think his offense takes a big step. I do think he's not the slot guy. Where Demario Douglas, one of my favorite sleepers, we talked about that on the sleeper show. He might end up getting more layup looks than Diggs, but I think Diggs can thrive. Chris Olave, I mean, you look at the yards per route run, well over 2 for every year of his career. I think he's one of like 5 wide receivers to do that, but the guy can't stay healthy. The quarterback play sucks. I mean, Rashid Shaheed goes 5 rounds later and might be that their last few healthy games together. Rashid Shaheed last year was better than Chris Olave. So he's a guy I'm a little bit lower on. ECR, I don't find myself landing him much, but I wouldn't hate it. He goes above some of these. He goes above Diggs. He goes above Addison. He goes above DK. No, thanks for me. Jacoby Myers, he'll probably beat out 38 where I have him ranked, but he'll probably be at 34. He's got a nice baked-in floor. Very solid, really made for. Isn't Brock Bowers the clear number one? Yeah, Ashton Genty. So now you're talking about the third in touches and looks in this offense for a guy that's good but not amazing as a wide receiver. I like him. He's a great one if let's say you do have Addison and Myers there in the next round. Great bridge guy that like you're never going to regret having at your wide receiver 3. But he doesn't bring like Addison can win you a week. You have 30 points in a given week. I guess Myers has done that too. He had a couple of huge games last year. But I don't. It's Jacoby Myers. It's like it's your wide receiver 3. Yeah, sure, fine. Juwan Jennings was somebody I was a lot higher on entering this offseason. I do think he still could be the number one for the 49ers. But the calf injury lingering, is it a contract thing? I'm not sure, but he's not practicing, and Ricky Pearsall is just continuing to ascend. So that's why, whereas again, 31, I have Pearsall, 39, I have Jennings. That used to be flipped entering the offseason. It was Jennings at 31, Pearsall at 39. But at this point, I feel a lot better about Pearsall's odds at being that early season passing game engine and just maybe never looking back. But Jennings did have like a 47-point game last year. He had a ton of impressive outings. I like Jennings a lot. If he's out there, I'm a huge fan of this guy. So we shall see. Number 40, I have Emeka Egbuka. So again, 35 Addison, 36 Stephon Diggs, 37 Chris Olave, 38 Myers, 39 Jennings, and then 40 Emeka Egbuka. All the buzz, whether it's Mike Evans, whether it's the head coach, whether it's the GM, they could not stop raving. Baker Mayfield is gushing about Egbuka, the most professional guy he's ever played with as a rookie, plays all the receiver spots, thriving, making these insane catches. He's just pro ready, and Chris Godwin's banged up. He's going to walk right in to an incredible role. So I love Egbuka, +7 ECR on him. Drafting rookies is typically a great idea. Yeah, they might take a little bit longer to get going. I don't think so with Egbuka, though. He is pro ready, and he has the runway with Godwin likely out for at least the first couple weeks. So I love Egbuka. Adunze, I'm a little lower on, as you can see, -6 ECR. Again, a crowded situation with a quarterback I don't love, and everybody's out. Adunze is the clear number one receiver, and he's going to break out, and maybe he does. I thought the prospect profile was solid enough last year, but he showed nothing. And how good of a fit is he? Is he great after the catch? Not really. Could he play the JMO role? Maybe, but he's not as fast or explosive as JMO. Dropped the ball last night. That was catchable. I don't know. I think Adunze is one of those guys that we just keep clinging to as a prospect. We love the profile, and then he just continues to underwhelm us till we finally accept, like, yeah, he's never going to be what we thought he was. Judy clearly below ECR, number -9, -8. Now, Flacco getting named the quarterback today, that helps Judy. I'll probably give him a spot or two above the rankings, but you take away the Jameis games, which I know we can't just remove the best games of the year, but they were the best games of the year by a mile. And Jameis Winston's the clear kingmaker at wide receiver. Evans and Godwin were wide receiver 2 and 3 with him. He had the 4th most yards in the league, Jerry Jeudy, the most yardage in the league when he was playing with Winston. So Flacco is similar. He's a gunslinger right now. We saw Amari Cooper have a really nice stretch run. So could Flacco keep Judy in those good graces? Yeah, maybe. that does change my outlook for Judy. That Flacco's like already the starting quarterback. We knew it probably was going to happen. How long does it last? 0 for 6 and the Browns are tanking. Maybe not. Maybe Flacco keeps it more competitive. If Flacco plays the quarterback all year, then Judy at 42 is going to look silly. I'm going to look really, really dumb. But I worry, okay, Dylan Gabriel, let's give him a trial. Okay, he doesn't look good. Shador's in. Maybe Shador's can, I don't know. He looked okay in his preseason game, but my upside case is we need Joe Flacco. Already I'm like, oh boy. So I've never been a Judy guy. It's only burned me for a bit of last year when he played with Winston. Other than that, Judy's really never burned me. I don't believe fully in him. I don't think he's a true one. Golden and Reed, like I talked about, I want this Packers offense. I think they're going to bounce back. Reed I had higher, but now he's in a walking boot. He just shed it, but a little bit sketchy there, whereas Golden's just been apparently the player at camp, making play after play after play, the only first-round receiver they've taken in like 2 decades type of thing. So I'm intrigued by Golden. I'm intrigued by Reed. I like both these guys at wide receiver for sure. Happy with them as my wide receiver 3. And Godwin, wide receiver 2 in points per game last year, was the number 2 receiver at the time of his injury. He was a beast. Now you had Igbuka. He's got this injury. Apparently he had to have a second surgery. The recovery timeline, he's on track, but we'll see about his availability. I think he's got, in DraftKings best ball, he goes to like 180, or not 180, rather 108. Anytime in your top 90, I'm good with Godwin. I think he is as good as Igbuka looks. Godwin's a stud. Like, you're hoping Igbuka eventually reaches Godwin's level. So I don't think Godwin's just going to like disappear into obscurity, but it is tricky. How long is this injury going to linger? How big of a role does Igbuka play? It's crowded there. So yeah. And then, like I said, top 50 wide receivers, you can see tier 9. These are like your 4s, your bench guys that during bye weeks is number 46 Pittman going to be useful? Probably. Cooper Kupp at 47. He's the type of guy that like he either blows this ranking out of the water and it's like, oh wow, Cooper Kupp, who was like the wide receiver 3 before Puka came back last year. He had some games where he looked like, yeah, it's still Cooper Kupp, but he keeps dealing with injuries and another year older. The issues with JSN with a run heavy scheme, those still exist. So there's a lot of warts to the Cooper Kupp profile, but when I do get to this range, if I have 3 guys I feel great about at wide receiver and I want more upside rather than like I can definitely depend on this guy in my bye weeks like Pittman, like 48 Khalil Shakir. If I want the upside, I do go after Kupp, or maybe I go after Coleman. With Shakir having that high ankle sprain, Coleman has had some camp days where he looks like a stud. And he's had some camp days where he doesn't look great at all. So he's my 49, and then Josh Downs coming in at 50, dealing with another new injury. You can see Higgins, Burden, Mooney, and then we start to get in like the sleeper tiers as well. So that's my top 50 wide receivers. We are an hour 22. My goal is just an hour and a half, but you know what? It's all good. We'll get to the tight ends in a second, but we got 730 of you here. Thank you so much. A phenomenal show. Please do consider hitting that thumbs up button on YouTube, on Twitter, the heart button, on Facebook, wherever you're watching it from. It would be so greatly appreciated. All these rankings are at rotostreetjournal.com. They'll be updated throughout the summer as you enter your draft season. You can find me at RotoStreetWolf on Twitter for any of those updates. I always tweet it out when I have a new, fresh big board and ranking set. And of course, these rankings do have a top 210 or so big board that I extend them out to. You can find those on the site. And a last plug for, of course, the draft guide you can also find on the website. Mean the world. It's the only thing we ever charge for every year because I think it's well worth it. All the reviews say it's well worth it year in and year out. They always, it's a great seller, and we would love, my fantasy soul on the page here, over 170 pages from the, number 6 in 2024 accuracy, number 2 in multi-year accuracy. It's out there for $25 for those of you that have the means and want to support your guy. It would mean the world. So thank you so much for even considering it. All righty, let us get back into the rankings here, and we'll wrap up with the top 24 tight ends. And you can see at number 1, Brock Bowers, number 2, Trey McBride, number 3, George Kittle. And what is different from what a lot of rankings might do is I have all 3 of these guys in the same tier. And that's more of a nod to Kittle and how much upside I think he has. You read the guide, you'll know I love George Kittle this year. I think he could be the engine of this passing game with no Ayuk, with no Debo. His splits without Debo are insane. And he goes, 2-3 rounds later than Bowers and McBride. So I think all three of those guys are rightfully elite. And I want an elite tight end this year. It's one of those, strategies, those 10 poles of my draft plan is getting an elite tight end. Most often that's going to be Kittle because I am guaranteed to get him in round 3. And sometimes he'll fall to me in round 4. And that way I can get an elite wide receiver, an elite running back, and then Kittle. Whereas Bowers and McBride, you're going to have to probably take a second-round plunge on. Sometimes McBride does fall to round 3, and that's nice. I love that. Bowers does not fall to round 3, and he doesn't deserve to. We could be talking about Bowers as the next Travis Kelce. Breaks the rookie reception record, not for tight ends, for all positions. Freak athlete, one of the best prospects to enter, comes in and smashes. McBride, a crazy season. Unbelievable. And Bowers only had 5 touchdowns. McBride only had 2. If those guys get a whiff of positive regressions, let's say they have 8 touchdowns, they're going to be insane values at their prices. Let's say they have 12 touchdowns and they go nuts. I think Bowers has a much higher upside ceiling to go to 12 touchdowns, by the way. It's McBride, for whatever reason, even dating back to high school, has struggled to score touchdowns. I don't know why. He's a big body. He's got a good catch radius. I don't know why he doesn't catch touchdowns, but he doesn't. So I am a little bit more skeptical of him actually hitting that high touchdown ceiling. But it's one of those things where it's like, if this happens, then this is the result. You got 2 tight ends that are targeted like they're number 1 wide receivers, and they just need a little bit of touchdown luck to then be Travis Kelce. If you didn't have him, you probably didn't win him much money in 2025 fantasy. And that could easily happen for Bowers and McBride. Whereas Kittle's almost the opposite. You're going to get the efficiency. You're going to get the touchdowns. What if you get 140 targets for George Kittle this year, though? Number 1 tight end last year in fantasy points per game. So I don't think you can go wrong with any of those 3. I just lean to Kittle the most because he's the cheapest, and he's cheaper by a good round or so discount. And you can build a little bit more of a roster out around him before you get to him. But I want one of those 3. Once you get a drop off, you get to Laporta, he's alone in tier 2 because, he was just the number 1 scoring tight end 2 seasons ago, but then JMO kind of exploded, and I think his ascension is going to continue. I don't see Laporta coming into this top tier. Again, I just don't think that volume is going to exist. And then after him, you get to tier 3, and this is all the remaining, okay, I can have these guys as my number 1 tight end. You can see it goes from 5 to 12. 5, TJ Hawkinson. 6, Travis Kelce. 7, Tyler Warren, plus 4 ECR on him. 8, Evan Ingram. 9, Mark Andrews. 10, David Njoku. 11, Tucker Kraft. And 12, Colson Loveland. So Hawkinson, he goes in redraft leagues way too early. In best ball, he falls to the 80s, sometimes the 90s. I love him there. I think he's going to be a nice safety valve for J.J. McCarthy. I think this offense is going to feast. I think in those early weeks when Addison's out, it's a no-brainer. Hawkinson's going to pick up a lot of slack and be a beast. So I love T.J. Hawkinson. High floor. In redraft, though, he does creep in the 60s, and there's just too many wide receivers. You saw my top 40 receivers that I have tier 7 to 8. And those round 6 to 8 range, I need those guys. And I'm not going to take a detour from TJ Hawkinson. That's why I'll take my round 3 detour and get George Kittle when I hate all the receivers on the board. Round 6 through 8, especially round 6 for where Hawkinson goes. Same with Kelce. He's motivated, in best shape of the last couple of years because they really want to bounce back. I could see totally Travis Kelce has a diet Travis Kelce season from the last couple of years, maybe. But it doesn't excite me as much. So where I often find myself investing in these guys is Tyler Warren, who goes 40 picks after TJ Hawkinson and Travis Kelce, around 9-10 range, where I've feasted on those wide receivers. I've got 4 to 5 wideouts I love, and I've got 2 to 3 running backs I love. Maybe my quarterback at that point, maybe not. I don't mind waiting on quarterback. And so I've got those instead of the onesies, I've really loaded up at running back and receiver. Now I get Ty Warren, who had a prolific record-setting college season last year. So many of it was, yak, you generated layups, but that's kind of what we want, is those guys that can be just dink and dunk with me because I'm going to be a beast in a bowl once that ball's in my hand. Yeah, sweet. Let's let it rip. So I love Tyler Warren, even if it is a gimmicky thing. They've talked about how they love moving him to the backfield, to the slot, to all over the place. So I like Tyler Warren a lot. I think he's going to be the number 1 pass catcher there. I hope it's Daniel Jones throwing him the rock, but either way, I like Warren. I love Evan Ingram and the Joker role for Sean Payton. There's some upside there. We saw a 58-yard scamper in preseason week 2, a catch and run there. So he's a beast. Mark Andrews, especially with likely now potentially missing some time. Wasn't that long ago. Like Mark Andrews was like 6th in the league in yards, like 1,300 yards. We know the upsides there. He had 10 touchdowns last year. The guy's always a beast. So this is the group that I like investing in. Now, Andrews and Ingram, they go around the Travis Kelce range in the 60s, 70s, where there's a bit more opportunity cost. So I do find myself leaning into the Ty Warrens or the David Njoku's with Joe Flacco at quarterback. Njoku was the tight end one in his games with Joe Flacco, an absolute beast. If you remember that 2 seasons ago, where Amari Cooper and Njoku just went bananas. So Flacco being named the starting quarterback, great news for Njoku. Tucker Kraft had like insane Kittle level efficiency last year. I believe it was like over 9 yards per target type of efficiency. And now they're talking about, yeah, we saw what he did. They even compared him to George Kittle in a question by a reporter. And Love said, yeah, we need to elevate this guy's role. We're actively giving him more looks. So all the talk is like, who's going to be the wide receiver one in Green Bay? What if it's Tucker Kraft? He's crazy after the catch. He's great deep down the field. I love Tucker Kraft. I had him in a lot of leagues last year. He bailed me out as a waiver wire pickup. And then Colson Loveland. I mean, the next with Sam Laporta for Ben Johnson, but actually a better prospect than Sam Laporta. Easy math to me. You saw it last night. 2 catches, 26 yards, streaking down the field. Awesome with the ball in his hands. I love Loveland. As a pure tight end prospect, I think he's better than Tyler Warren. I don't know if he has the target hog upside as Tyler Warren, but that's why these guys are all in the same tier, And so this is like if I've missed on tight end, I kind of view this tier as like the quarterbacks that quarterback 6 through 16 very similar. Who's going to go the cheapest? I'll just kind of pluck there. Oftentimes that's Loveland. Oftentimes that's Kraft, like 120, 130. That's where I find myself. If I have not gotten my elite guy, I really want to get one in this tier. Because once you get out of the top 12, it's like, okay, tier 4, Dallas Goedert, 13, fine. Not going to do much for you. You have 14, Jake Ferguson, fine. At that point, though, like I'll just wait for 15, Zach Ertz. Because those guys, Goddard and Ferguson, they go like the 125, 130 range, where I love Jadon Blue, where I love Bashal Tootin, some of these sleeper running backs. Zach Ertz goes like 170. He often goes undrafted, and he outscored both of those guys by quite a lot last year and is now even more of the security blanket because Terry McLaurin's been out, and it looks like he's just kind of completely turned back time. So Zach Ertz, I do really, really like if I've punted the position, a nice high floor option, similar to Hunter Henry with Drake May. McDaniels, last time those two played together, they only had 1 season, McDaniels with Hunter Henry. 9 touchdowns with Mac Jones as his quarterback. I think he got 10 touchdown upside there. Kyle Pitts, I just have him here because I wanted to say Kyle Pitts, but all the talk, he's his golf buddy now. Oh boy, I better go in. Dalton Kincaid, a tweener, classic tweener tight end. That's like not athletic enough to be an every down move around wide receiver piece, not a good enough blocker. So you got Knox coming in. Knox scores that touchdown in the preseason to just remind you of everything you hated about the guy. And then Brenton Strange, tight end 19, converts 2 key third downs in the early preseason game. Like a lot of the talk in camp is this offense. It's like Evan Ingram's just there and they haven't missed a beat. I like Strange. It is just though like, okay, you got Hunter, you got, of course, BTJ. It's kind of Kate Otten when you're surrounded by these 2 elite beasts. You could be good, but how much volume is it really going to be there for you? And then to wrap it up, so I do think those guys are like, okay, I've punted the position. Can I get any dependable production? These 13 through 19. If they're my tight end one, because I waited to 170 to just take one in the last round, sure. Once I get to tier 5, I mean, Isaiah Likely, if he's healthy, he's definitely in that tier. But dealing with a foot thing might linger onto the season. Chigo Konku, 21. Really, those last 3 games of the season was a top 10 tight end. And they've talked about he played every single snap with the starters in the preseason. They've really elevated to an every down role because they feel like he earned it. I like Okonkwo. This is a guy that your sleeper, though. He's like your tight end 2s that you hope some catch some lightning here. I like Elijah Arroyo, compared to an ex-receiver by the GM and coach, talking about moving him around. You can play him anywhere over the field. Guy hit like 22 miles per hour last year in college at Miami for Cam Ward. Was a featured target. He's very exciting to me, even if it's right now a little split between him and A.J. Barner. And wrapping up my top 24, you got Mason Taylor, whose dad is Jason Taylor, whose uncle Zach Thomas, football player. I am worried about Justin Fields, though, so he might come down. I do, 24, Jonnu Smith, 25, Gesicki, 26, Kate Otten. Jonnu Smith clearly below ECR, minus 11 is ADP, the tight end 4 last year. I mean, he leaves the ultimate fertile fantasy environment of Miami to now maybe he is the number 2 option in Arthur Smith's passing game. So yeah, I don't love Jonnu Smith. I think it's just going to be maddening inconsistency for any passing game weapon with Arthur Smith, including Jonnu. So he's overrated in my opinion. And that wraps up my top 24 tight ends as well. And that wraps up my entire ranking mega show. So guys, thank you so much. The 770 of you that are here. We have a few questions in the mailbag. So Bulldog saying LFG. We'll pull that up. But one last reminder that these rankings are at rotostreetjournal.com. They're always free. You can also find them at my Twitter page at RotoStreetWolf. And any support to the draft guide is so greatly appreciated. Thank you again so much for even considering it. And a quick thumbs up or heart or any of that would help me out greatly. Bulldog saying, if I pick Bijan with number 2, who should I be targeting for a wide receiver? I just hate the wide receivers in the second and third, and even some in the fourth. Yeah, I really – that's what is tricky is I do think you got to go Bijan too. I would take him over Jefferson and Lamb. But the drop-off is pretty steep. If London falls to you, incredible. Let's go. To me, if I'm taking a receiver in that range, it is Tyreek Hill because he is the one that, like, if he has 1,810 touchdowns, I wouldn't be shocked. But, like, you're, again, assuming no Drake London, no A.J. Brown, those guys don't fall to you. I like Tyreek Hill. I like Ladd McConkey, and I like T. Higgins. Like that kind of tier I was showing off. Bulldog tier 5 in my rankings. And if it has to be Mike Evans, it has to be Mike Evans. I've seen Evans fall into like the 40s in redraft leagues. So I wouldn't be opposed to going, Bijan, you said the second pick, right? Bijan, Chase Brown, and Trey McBride. And then I go with T. Higgins or rather Mike Evans falls to me in round 4. And then I go Jamison Williams in round 5. And I start just loading up on those guys. I'm good with that. Full PPR does change a little bit too, though. Coach Zeke saying he loves these videos. Thank you so much for being here, my guy. Third pick in my Snake League and other league, I'm in auction. I want to double down on the same guy. According to the guide, I'm looking at Gibbs or Bijan. Yeah, you can't go wrong with either. And if you want to go Barkley, you feel better about his ability to stay healthy, Coach Zeke, sure. Any of those 3 running backs, I think you want to go after. You're not going to go wrong. Barkley has a little bit of the added risk of all those different curses of 400 touches, 2,000 yards, Madden curse, whatever you might throw out there. There's a little bit more risk there, but to me, I'm looking at Gibbs, and certainly if Bijan falls to 3, absolute no brainer. Having a hard time one or the other. Only reason I'm leaning Gibbs is because of their high scoring offense. Yeah, it just to me is it is just the higher, but the Eagles offense, that's a great offense too. The Falcons, I think, could take a leap. That's why I like all 3 of these guys. Gibbs is like the ultimate ceiling. If one of these guys completely wrecks fantasy, it's like him going on a stretch run where he averages 30 points per game. So I lean him just slightly, but he also has more carry competition than either of those other guys too. So you saw, if you haven't seen it yet, I talked about all 3 of these guys on the round 1 show. You have the guide, I know, my man, Coach Zeke. So you've seen the breakdowns. I try to go very in-depth in them so that way you can kind of pluck and decide, like, you know what, this matters more to me. The curses, they mean nothing. Barkley's floor, the fact that he was tackled 11 times at the 1-yard line and Barkley actually has a ceiling, that means more to me. So I'm going to go with Barkley. I want to lay out everything that you should know for those 3, and then it's up to you. But yeah, I go Bijan, Gibbs, Barkley myself. But you have the info, my man. It's a very tough call though. I lose sleep over it. I'm almost like, give me pick 4 so I can just not have to decide. I'll just take whoever falls to me. What's up, Ryan? Thank you so much for your kind words. And thank you again, Cole Keen. I show a little nip for those of you that might have missed it because Cole paid me to take my shirt off. Thank you, brother. Wolf, man, let's get it this year. Absolutely, JC. Good to see you. I think QB tight end wise, I feel like waiting and trying to get May, Caleb, or Dak. Caleb and tight end, you pair up with Love. Yeah, I love that strategy. I think quarterback's extremely deep. I'm all for if an elite falls to the 3rd. You can get Lamar or Josh in the 3rd. Yeah, do it. But at the early 2nd, where you still have Bucky Irving, you still have Chase Brown, you still have the elite tight ends. I got to go with those guys over the quarterbacks. And so I do find myself punting. And May's the one that most often falls to me because he's ranked quarterback 16. I have him quarterback 8. So that's the guy I'm most going with. But I totally like the idea. I like Dak in that range. I love stacking up, my tight end with either of those, whether it's Hunter Henry, whether it's Tucker Kraft and Jordan Love. If you are waiting, I would say, JC, like pluck 2 out just to be safe. Get yourself Drake May, and then get yourself Jordan Love. Or make sure you get JJ McCarthy. You know what I mean? Give yourself a few outs just in case Drake May doesn't pan out the way I think he might. I've also seen the Lions might be using both Monty and Gibbs at the same time. Yep, I've seen that exactly. I mean, imagine that in the mismatch out of the slot like Gibbs. Woo, beautiful. I also agree with you. Taylor might be this year's Saquon. You're the first person I saw say that. Yeah, there you go. Just got to stay healthy and not the team stink. 2 decent ifs because he has, coach, a little bit of an injury history. But, yeah, that if he stays healthy, I don't think they're going to completely stink. I think their line's still going to be, they lost a couple guys, but should still be top half as well. I'm just going to grab my water real quick, JC, and then answer this one for you. As we approach almost 1,000 live people here, love to see it. All righty, JC, what do we got? Pick 12th in a PPR league with bonuses for 40. I remember, yeah, I feel like you've always been in this league. I remember hearing about this one. I think I try to go receiver. Yeah, I think at the 12th, the bottom of the draft, I am very cool with wide receivers, especially with those big yard bonus plays, bonus points. I love if you can get 2 of Nico, Neighbors, and BTJ, I'm all for it. I think Achane I would have been cool with pairing there. But with that soft tissue thing now going on, I do like Derrick Henry, though. I just think about it's one of those things like, yeah, you're in PPR. It's not the best for him. But I mean, he's minus 265 every week to score a touchdown. It's like you're going to get a touchdown every week. It's just a matter of does Derrick Henry get you 2 touchdowns? And so I'm not opposed to going if it's a 3 wide receiver and a flex. So I see it right now: 2 wide receiver, 2 running backs, 2 flex. So you can start up to 4 wide receivers and get those big play edges. I think that is big. But you also look at Derrick Henry, like how many 40-plus yard runs did he have? He had some beastly ones there too. So I think if I'm you, JC, I do like again, because of how much I love that like round 5 to 8 wide receiver, even 9. Ricky Pearsall's going like 100 and Jordan Addison's going 89. Like I almost would rather get yourself your receiver of choice and then Henry is kind of how I might play that. But honestly, I in best ball, I do a ton of wide receiver starts just because I know at like 36, I'll get Trevion Henry. So you could pull that off, right? You could do Neighbors, Nico, and then Trevion, and round 5, you come back with Harvey and James Conner or something. So it's totally there for sure. Denver's O-line is legit. Harvey will see some big weeks. He absolutely will. Dan Kulke, number 2 in PFFs. That in the guide you mentioned the year of the rookie running backs for auction. Would you get 1 or 2 monster running backs and save money and get lower running back ones and then get all the rookies later? So thinking out loud, yeah. So Zeke, my auction strategy, me and Trish should try to get live for an auction. I'm always studs and duds. Whether that means you paid up for a couple big receivers, a couple running backs, 1 of each. I think this year I'd like to pay up for like 1 stud receiver, 1 stud running back. Give me Gibbs and give me BTJ. And then you just pluck it. Because I do think those running backs, the rookie running backs, are going to come at a much cheaper price tag. In particular, the Bayshall Tutons, the Jadon Blues. If you've ever done an auction draft, Zeke, it often gets to like, it becomes a snake draft where it's like everybody's just $1 for the most part, maybe $2 max because you save a little money. Now you can pluck whoever you want situation. I'm always all for the studs and duds though. Like I often will get those 2 main pieces where I spend well over half my budget, 50 for one, 60 for the other, and then fill in the gaps. Because it doesn't have to all be like completely $1 players around them either. You can get, last year Christian McCaffrey was one of my big spend ups. Yay. Thanks, Christian. But I got Neighbors for $14. Then you get, you just mixing those guys. Like this year, Calvin Ridley will probably go for $6. There's always like the veteran wide receiver. I got Godwin last year before he got hurt. He was like $7, Those unsexy but like dependable, that round 6 to 9 receiver range that I'm talking about. Get 3 of those guys for a combined $35 or so, and you've filled out your whole receiver core along with an anchor stud. So yeah, I always, though, as you think out loud, I always love to go monsters. Whether it's 2 monster running backs, if you want to go Gibbs and Bijan, holy crap, like steamroll. Pluck in those value wide receivers, those like wide receiver 2s that go for wide receiver 3 prices in auction values, and then just load up the bench with upside is how I typically attack that. Thanks again for supporting us, Zeke, and buying the guide too. I greatly appreciate it, Coach. You're the man. You always are at the show supporting it, and you came through and bought the guide too. I hope you're finding good value in there. Devontae Adams plus first plus second for Devonta Smith and Judkins. I like that, Coda. My knee-jerk reaction is like, Judkins should keep his nose clean now and should be their featured back for life, but maybe not. Devonta Smith seems kind of trapped there. So you get Devontae Adams, him versus Devonta Smith in 1 year. I'd probably actually take Adams this year, and then you get a first and second, like who could each of those could end up being better picks than Devonta and Judkins. So yeah, I like that move for sure. What pick Arturo Flores is the earliest to draft Josh Allen? To me, I think there's about, I think I have him at like 24, 25 on my big board. There's like 23-ish players. I'd go Bucky Irving. I'd go Chase Brown. I'd go certainly Brock Bowers and probably Trey McBride. And then it's like, okay, now it's time to take the plunge. Now, granted, Arturo, I do like, if you didn't miss the quarterback part, I do like Lamar Jackson more than Josh Allen. So that. I need to hear why you're so low on Shakir, says Austin. It's one of those things. He should be back for week 1. Right, not Austin? Probably will be. But for the risk of a re-aggravation for a high ankle is pretty high, especially the nature of what he plays. And then it's also just like, so I know I'm low on him, but I have him like, where do I have him? At 48, right? So who am I going to put him up? But like, he's never going to be a league winner. I had him as a sleeper last year on my sleeper show, my sleeper article, and that panned out great. But now that he goes like around 8, 9, you're not telling me that Jaden Reed, all things bend right his way, he gets a bump in his role, is not limited to just 3 receiver sets. And suddenly this guy that is so efficient points per route run is blowing up. He goes after Shakir. Emeka Egbuka, like an exciting rookie like that, goes after Shakir. To me, it's part of my kind of philosophy, Austin, is I'm chasing upside. And Shakir, yeah, maybe he's just your nice wide receiver 3, and he gets you 11-ish points a game, and he's fine. But then there's also like Bo Palmer does a lot of what he does, and now he's on the team. They gave him a big contract, and he's been a magnet in camp. And then Keon Coleman's showing out better. And so are we even that guaranteed to have Shakir be the true number 1? So it is part the injury. It's part the re-aggravation of the injury. It's mostly, though, the upside compared to the receivers at the same price. And also, what if these other guys around him do end up really panning out, That's I like him, but yeah, that's kind of where I go. JSN's about to get so many more targets this season. He only has to compete. Yeah, he should, Drew. It's just, I think it's going to be a more run-heavy attack than people think. And as I said, I think a lot of people would have him in that highest wide receiver 2s. I love that you pay attention. You know the labels of the tiers. I think that's where he typically gets ranked, and I totally understand. I had JSN last year. Loved him, But they were also top 5 in pass rate over expectation. I think top 6 in total pass attempts. I think in this Kubiak system, they're going to definitely throw it a lot less, and they might be more efficient with their passing. But I do worry a little bit that what if Kupp's not washed? Maybe he is, but when he was healthy last year, he played pretty good. In general, are rookies undervalued in ADP and expert consensus? Yes, I think so, Armin. It depends on what rookie you want, of course, but I think just in general, this year I do think it's rookie running backs that are the real bargains. Last year I called the year of the rookie wide receiver, and that panned out. And it's probably a reason why I finished, 6th in 2024 accuracy, 2nd in multi-year accuracy. General philosophy is I do just attack rookies, though. That's where you can, especially in redraft, where you can cut a guy and pick someone off the waiver. Why not home run hack with every single one? I know in best ball you have to be a little bit different. You have to play it a little safer because you need sure things. You need those singles to go along with the home runs. In redraft, you don't. You swing and miss. You're going to find a single on the waiver wire. There's plenty of those guys. I do like Diggs and Tebow. I guess those are the best ones to compare him to. But give me Egbuka right in that same range for sure. I always like to go with that. FFB shot caller. So I do have PPR rankings. Realistically, I do some PPR leagues. I use them pretty much to a T. Like, sure, you kind of just know. What I'm going to do next year too is write like a compliment to the guide where it's like, if you play PPR, here's who to elevate, here's who to downgrade. If you play standard, because there are people that still somehow play standard, here's who to bump up, who's here to go down. But it is just like it takes a long time. Whereas like I might bump up, you kind of know the obvious names. Like Derrick Henry might drop a spot or two, and Achane might bump up a spot or two. But to like make all those rankings and to republish it, then to make a new page and do that, it just takes a really long time. I'm not gonna lie. And now that I got a kid and everything, it's just I can't do it all. And so if you use the half PPR, honestly, I use my half PPR for all my PPR drafts. And you elevate the handful of guys. The Demario Douglas is as a sleeper wide receiver. I already have him, 8 spots above ECR. Maybe he goes 10 spots above ECR in my PPR. Giuseppe asking, pick 5, CD or JJ? If I had a draft today, Giuseppe, I'm doing CD. I just look at it where they're both elite talents, elite target earners. JJ is the better talent, no doubt about it. He might be the best receiver in the league. But I look at the quarterbacks, and I know what I'm getting in Dak. I think I'm going to really like what I get from JJ, but it's not a guarantee. And so I go to CD there, especially because I think their defense is really going to stink, the Cowboys, and they might become the the Bengals of the other of the NFC rather. But Kyle says JJ, and I totally get it. Chisholm over Diggs just for fun. I love Chisholm. I mean, I'm all about this guy. I think he's like a great Demario Douglas handcuff. A Dynasty, stashing him all over there. Have the first pick in Dynasty rookie draft. My 5 picks were Genty, Loveland, Jadon Blue, Milrow, and Giddens. And then I scooped up Rashard Smith and Taj Brooks. I think you crushed it, Giuseppe. I mean, you can't go wrong with Genty at the top. Clearly the best guy. I think Loveland is your locked-in tight end for the rest of the time. You know how much I love Jadon Blue. I think Milrow, Dynasty, is getting very slept on right now. And Rashard Smith and Taj Brooks, great. I mean, you've Chase Brown handcuff, beautiful. And you know my feelings on Rashard Smith. I know you got the guy there, Giuseppe, the next Jerick McKinnon. Come on now. Let's go. You crushed your draft there, Giuseppe. Do you think that Tyler Warren has a chance to make a Laporta? Yes, I do, Drew. I talked about that in the tight end section. You feel free to rewind it. But the way that he was like, I think people use it against him that he was like kind of like a generated touch guy in college. So much of his receptions were just screens. Well, you can build the plane out of him. And would not shock me at all. A lot of the beats are saying like he's the number 1 receiver here. It's not Pittman, it's not Downs, it's Ty Warren. So yes, I do think so. The quarterback play is going to be sketchy, but if it's Daniel Jones for over half the year, that I think is good. So yeah, I'm there. Full PPR team. I've got it's 225. I'm going to go to 230. So I hopefully will get through this whole mailbag. But if not, I'll always prioritize the super chats, of course. Thank you again, Dan Colkeen, for the super chat to take my shirt off. But yeah, if you want a guaranteed answer, I should be able to get through this all, but I do have a wrap at 230 here. Full PPR, 10 teams. I have 2nd, 5th, and 8th picks. Keeper is Chase Brown at 10th. Love that. At 3rd pick, how would you approach? It's okay, Left. I'm sorry. That's like a 20-minute answer. I have a draft guide about exactly how I do all my early rounds, my late rounds. It's nice to have Chase Brown locked in, so you got a low end running back one, if not high end running back one, just completely in the saddle. So that's nice. I would probably look to get some wide receivers, but that's a loaded question. It's a very specific one that's just gonna be very long, drawn out answer, and then not let me get to the other people here. But if you have a specific like, should I look at this guy or this guy? This is who I expect to be there. Toss that in there. That might be a little bit easier for me to give you some more clarity. But I think it's nice to have Chase Brown at 10th for sure, locked in. And then I would probably be focusing on receiver early there. Tommy V, is there a case to make draft Neighbors over Lamb? I think Tommy V only if like Winston was named the starter quarterback or Jackson Dart was named the starter. I don't know that I could ever pull that trigger unless I had those two starting at quarterback from the jump. I do think Jackson Dart will be starting at some point, and the sooner that happens, the higher the ceiling gets. But between like the toe thing, the back thing, the little nagging injuries, and then the quarterback questions, you don't have that going on with CD at all. It's just too locked in for me. So I go CD. Out of these 3 in full PPR, who would you draft as your running back 1? Jacobs, Brown, Bucky. I rank them Brown, then Bucky, then Jacobs. This is a ranking show, so you guys can rewind and watch how I rank them. That's exactly how I would go. Even in full PPR, I think Brown has that nice receiving ceiling too. Kyle Siebert, 12-man keeper. I have Rice, Worthy, Pickens, Pollard, Irving. I have to make a decision on keeping Josh Allen or Derrick Henry. Nice. I'd keep Derrick Henry. If there's no penalty, it's like the same cost, then Derrick Henry, I have 10 spots above him in the rankings. Just a locked in bell cow. So I'd go with that. Alvin Kamara or Chuba Hubbard in PPR, Miguel Garza. I would go full PPR. I'd probably go Kamara and lean into that, given all that pass catching upside for sure. Wolf, first year with you here. Great stuff so far. Awesome, Zach. Nana Boo Boo. I'm glad to have you. Hopefully you hit the sub button. We'll be doing these throughout the year as well for sit starts and everything. I'm in a keeper league, and my second pick falls around Mike Evans, Kittle, Kamara. What do you think of Kamara being your best running back? Don't love it. If I'm at that point, I'm almost just punting and waiting. I'd rather go RJ Harvey, if Trevion Henderson's there, over Kamara for sure. I would probably lean to Kittle of these ones. Is where I would go for that. Yeah. All righty. And then we got, so Tommy V saying Kamara 100% for PPI. I agree with that earlier question. Makes sense. Appreciate the answer. Sure not, Austin. Absolutely. Happy to answer all the questions we get. Took JM Blue over Tootin. I would do that too, Giuseppe. I think you got that earlier, right into the starting lineup. And if it hits, you got, Diet Jahmyr Gibbs and the Cowboys offense. I'm into it. So I think he's got a path to an earlier impact and could even be better long-term too. And then Corey saying, so I'm not sure what it means. Yeah, he goes right back into the draft. I'm not sure. Should I trade Olave for Trevion Henderson? Oh, yeah. I would make that trade and not do it now, please, Corey. If that's on the table, you absolutely have to do that. I would take Trevion 1,000 times out of 1,000 over Olave. I want Trevion Henderson on that deal. Tunes, last question here. 10-man PPR, 3 receivers, 2 running backs, 2 flex, 109. Leaning a receiver start. Somebody else has something similar, Tunes, and I personally, I think even full PPR, it's okay, yeah, I should lean in receivers, right? But I don't know. I love having just an elite running back and elite wide receiver too. I'm not opposed at all with the 5 potential starters being receivers. Yeah, you could absolutely go Neighbors, BTJ. I love that start. I think it's phenomenal. But if you go Neighbors and Henry's sitting there, I have a hard time not taking him and just giving yourself a hero running back to then build around. Because there are just so many. I keep emphasizing, you've read the guide Tunes where it's round 6 to round 9. If I just go receiver for 4 straight rounds, I love all of them. I got Pearsall, I got Ridley, I got Jordan Addison and George Pickens. It might not fall exactly like that, right? But boom, those 4 guys with 1 first-round wide receiver, you've got 5 great receivers all of a sudden that any one of them could spike for 30 points a week. And you also had Derrick Henry. So your running back doesn't have a huge drop-off either. So I think there's enough depth at wide receiver that I don't think you have to go wide receiver just because it's PPR. Can you? Absolutely. Do you have to? Probably not. And I probably wouldn't recommend it if there's a running back you really like, whether it's at 9 or rather at 9 or that'd be the 12th pick. I think I'd probably go receiver running back there. Alrighty, guys. Well, thank you so much. We were able to get to all the questions, which I greatly appreciate. Great mailbag today. All these rankings will be at rotostreetjournal.com. You can find, again, the draft guide there as well. It would mean the world. If you enjoy this analysis and you have the means to support your boy, please do consider getting that draft guide. I promise it will help you win your leagues this year. It's the hardest I work on anything. 170 pages of my fantasy soul on the page. All of my league winners, all of that. But the rankings, of course, are always free at rotostreetjournal.com. Both of those links are in the description. Thank you again so much for spending your Monday here with me. And we'll be live leading up to draft. So we'll have a few more shows coming up here. So just stay tuned to my Twitter at RotoStreetWolf. So I'll let you know when we're going live or subscribe to the channel so you never miss a show. In a world full of fancy sheep, guys, be the wolf. Later.